Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It's the end of Weekly Manga Recap. It's May 31st, 2023.
The theme month we've definitely been doing.
Yes, and that I didn't just think of a pun for just now. I'm Nick, this is Quinn, and we're going to talk about some manga today. Aren't you all excited and lucky?
Yeah, you're truly the fortunate one. We have a good system here on this podcast, I think, between Nick and myself. We're very simpatical. We share a lot. And I want to give you evidence of this.
Of how we actually share one brain?
Yeah, pretty much. So last night, there was something I was trying to think of, and I was like, I cannot fucking, like, I barely know how to describe this thing, and I can't find it. And I was trying to ask Austin about it. I was like, oh, it's like this thing, I think it was called, like, Electric Mongoose or something like that. And Austin was like, that's a Pokemon. And I was like, no. And I messaged Nick, and I had to clarify. I feel like I messaged you very late.
Like it was about 10:30 at night. I was like, I was shaving to get ready for bed and stuff. So yeah.
I feel bad. But I texted Nick. I was like, hey, I do not know. This is a shot in the dark. But I feel like I recall when I was in high school, there was like a website I used to go to a lot where they used to have like comic book characters and video game characters and stuff like that fight each other in like text-based little things. And it was like a whole website of that. And I feel like it was called like Electric Mongoose or something, Electric something. Does this ring a bell or did I fever dream it? And I feel like you responded instantly.
Well, hang on. Let's look at the timestamps on this here, because you're right. So Quinn, 10:38 p.m. You message me, and you say, "Do you remember this?" 10:39 p.m.
Yeah, it was immediate. I got a response, and you were like, "Yes, I think it was called Electric Ferret." Which I went to look at, and it still exists. It's very different than it was before. I guess they do like seasons now or something like that.
Huh.
But for me, that was like unlocking it was like we entered a new room in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Like MC Escher world. Like we opened a new door, and I was like, yes, this site of battles that I used to go to. I used to like log in daily to see if they had like posted a new battle, because I guess the way it worked is they'd like create the matchup, and then they'd like let people hash out the fight in the forums, and there'd be a poll, and then at the end somebody would write the actual fight and how it would go. And I didn't participate in any part of that. I just came for the results. But like legitimately, I feel like anytime I had a computer in front of me when I was in high school, I would log into Electric Ferret to see if there was a new fight up. And I was like, maybe no one else has heard of this. And of course, Nick, having of course grown up the exact same way I did.
Yeah, pretty much.
Immediately like, yeah, Electric Ferret, I remember that.
Yeah, it was, I mean, obviously, like, Death Battle is, like, a really big thing online. There's, because it's a very long-running, like, video series and stuff. But yeah, prior to the day of, like, someone having the thought and the dedication and the resources to hire, like, animators and voice actors and music producers to create a big, high-production show built around it, it was just like, well, I host, a website, and I've got a forum that people can chip in their opinions on, and I'm pretty good at writing. And someone just wrote out results based entirely on like fan speculation and input. And I did always appreciate whenever they got like into they wouldn't always be like one-on-one battles. Sometimes it would be like team battles, and sometimes it would be like free-for-all, last man standing kind of ideas. And I would always appreciate when it came to the latter, that people would they would write it out so that they would drop off in the order that the results came in. So, you know, if it was like, I think there was one that was literally like an evil clown battle. So it was like, it was, you know, Pennywise from It, the Psycho Clown from Spawn, the Joker. I forget the name of that one from Twisted Metal that Samojo is going to be playing.
Sweet Tooth, I think.
Yes, that one.
Wait, Samojo is playing him?
Playing his body, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a Super Shredder kind of situation. So then it put them onto like a battle royal together, and it was like they got killed in the order of, in, you know, like ascending order of like who got the most votes of who would win and stuff. And it was a nice touch in terms of that. But yeah, I definitely, like you did, spend many an hour going on there trolling through the results. I think my favorite one was they ran Goku versus Superman, and the poll results on the forum like crashed and were lost forever. So they had to be like, it's a draw, I guess.
They both win. Please don't be angry at us comic book and or manga fans.
So yeah, good times. It was a nice visit from the past. So thanks for the reminder of that.
Yeah, it's just something, I don't know how it stumbled upon my mind. Something that reminded me. I was like, was it like a site I used to watch all the time where there were big battles? And there we go. I should have known. I should have known that Nick would have known.
Well, yeah, obviously, because I was there the whole time.
We were interacting before we even knew each other, just
right.
Arguing who would win between Sub-Zero or fucking Frozone from The Incredibles. And obviously it'd be Sub-Zero. He has ninja training on top of his ice powers, so that's a wash. I don't know how I even got into that.
Yeah. Let's not spark the anger of the power scale analysis in the Pixar shared universe fandom.
Yeah. The Pix heads, as we call them.
It's like top tier, Lightning McQueen, obviously.
Yeah. He's fast. He's a car. What else do you need?
Just like that pro-con attribute listing. One of them is just is a car.
Is a car. It's the number one. Is a car. Ka-chow. Number 3. I guess impervious to all diseases. All biological diseases. In parentheses, because he is a car.
Oh, God. Yeah, this has been a nice trip down memory lane. And guys, as we all know, when we look back at our past, we only find good memories there. Nothing that we're ashamed of at all.
I hate this.
So, guys, we read a manga for this week. It is called Blank Canvas, My So-Called Artist's Journey by Akiko Higashimura. Ran in the early 2010s in a monthly magazine, and it is an autobiography. It is Akiko Higashimura basically relating the story of how she started off as a kind of directionless teenage kind of wannabe artist who was kind of okay at drawing and sort of had in her head like, oh, I'm going to make manga one day. And how she had to suffer through a lot of not fairy tale ending real world stuff in order to actually become a professional mangaka. And how she got to the point where she was when she started it, and how a lot of that and a lot of the success that she experienced is because of the lessons that, well, really the one lesson primarily that she learned from the first teacher that she had when she started taking up art seriously. And I can't even remember like his name because he's basically just referred to as Sensei through essentially like the entire series. There are of course moments when he's referred to by his actual name, but in her mind he's always like just Sensei. And to get into the general structure of the story, Higashimura, who her character, quote unquote, within the story rather, Hayashi, is a naive, wide-eyed, kind of lazy and directionless kid who takes a while to really shake that habit and start, like really, really focusing on what she wants to do with her life. And she kind of keeps on making a lot of the same mistakes over and over again. And then she feels really guilty about wasting her young adulthood, her sentiment. And that's the manga, really. It can be quite an awkward read at times, because I feel like everyone has gone through something somewhat akin to what Hayashi goes through, especially around this period in her life where she is hitting that transition between, being a kid in some form and having to start to become an adult. Everyone has to go through that transition, and look, a lot of us don't go through it very smoothly, and a lot of people are still going through it in some form or another. It's not an easy transition to make, and Hayashi makes some mistakes while she is doing it, and she feels really bad about it.
I should note this series is licensed by Seven Seas Entertainment, so if you want to pick it up, that is the way to do it. This is a biographical exploration of Higashimura's journey as an artist, starting from when she's 16, but being written from the vantage point of her when she's in her late 30s to early 40s. And it's about 5 volumes long, and the entire thing is really framed around a particular relationship she has with this sensei. I think every single volume basically kind of ends on a very wistful note of the times that she spent with her sensei, or regretting not doing more with him, or these various different things. And it really just exists as this sort of very specific sort of nostalgia where you long for the past in an angry or disappointed way because you were so frustrated with yourself for not taking advantage of the opportunities you should have, and in this case in particular, for not spending time with somebody who clearly wanted to spend time with you. We'll get into it as we explain this, but I need to stress, I sobbed so much throughout reading of this series. If you don't know, in my household right now, there's currently a cry jar. This is the cry jar right now. We've been doing it for about a month. Anytime I or one of my roommates, Joa, cries, we put a bean in this jar. I put 5 beans in yesterday, and all I read was the last volume of this series. Like, I could not stop crying. There's heft to this guy right now. If you're not listening or watching the video version, there's a lot of beats in this, and this manga contributed at least a dozen, I think, over the course of it. And I also noted being so sad that Mandela, the one who recommended this series, felt so bad they actually sent cupcakes as an apology. I need to stress, I was sobbing so hard yesterday I couldn't breathe through my nose. Like, I had been sobbing so long because the last volume is it just destroys you. Like, I don't know how you read it and not come away with just being like, I've been torn apart from the inside out. But we will explain, I guess, a little bit more of why that is in just a moment.
So, yeah, to give you an idea of how things kind of go in the series, Hayashi is just kind of this kid who honestly really doesn't give probably a lot of thought into what's going to go on, when she becomes an adult. There's this like very easy roadmap that she kind of just has envisioned, which is just like, yeah, I'll get into an art college, and then while I'm in art college, I will make my debut as a mangaka, and I'll win a newcomer award, and that'll help me to support my way through college, and then I'll just become a famous mangaka from that point, and everything will be great. And that's just kind of it. In terms of how she will realize this, it'll be fine. I'm good. I'm just gonna be this amazing newcomer who's super talented and stuff, and that's just gonna be it. And to be clear, she's got artistic talent, but she does not have a lot of experience actually drawing. And so when she, says oh yeah, I want to try and get into an art school and stuff, people are like, all right, but you need to practice and know what you're doing and stuff. So she has a classmate whose name escapes me. Fuyumi, is it?
Fuyumi or Fumiko?
I think it might be Fuyumi, who is a fun character because she just never changes her expression. No. She's just I was like, yeah, okay, and she's going to be going to an art class to learn to draw, and so Hayashi learns about this. And is like, well, I guess I can try and do that too. Gets there, the teacher is crazy. His approach to getting people to draw better is to scare them and
attack them with a sword,
with a kendo stick. And like, draw more! No, that's not good drawing. Draw better. And at first, it seems like, well, this seems just like an abusive relationship. This doesn't seem good. And honestly, there are still parts of their relationship that I feel like Higashimura kind of just glosses over in terms of how problematic the teacher-student relationship is. And it does really feel like she's from a somewhat of an older generation in Japan where corporal punishment was probably just a thing that happened between teachers and students. But at the same time, since it's awesome, he is just very, very, very involved in his students' development as artists. And also he's not, the warmest person a lot of the time, but he very clearly demonstrates through actions how much he does care. There's a bit where Hayashi kind of fakes illness to just try to go home. And when her teacher realizes that her parents aren't going to be picking her up, he literally goes to offer to carry her on his back to get to the station because he's like, you're not well enough to know where to go walking if you feel like if you feel so sick you can't draw, so I'm going to carry you. And just does that kind of thing. And whenever it comes time for his students to take entrance exams to go into class, he's like, look, you're going to be fine, just draw, just do what you've been learning to do here. And if any of you fail, you can come back here and I'll teach you again and prepare you for next year. Always, very reassuring, always very matter of fact with everyone in terms of this is how you're going to do it. If it doesn't work out, fine, you'll just practice, put more, and come back better. Yeah, and that's it.
This guy is a very particular character. He has so many eccentricities that seem very iconic to him. He runs this school for a very low price. It's $50 a month or something like that, basically. And you just take as you go there almost every single day, and he's just teaching you this entire time. He just oftentimes has a very matter of fact way of being all right, I want to do this. Let's do it. We're doing it now. He doesn't talk about anything in the sense of oh, maybe we'll do this. In his mind, he's like, we're doing this. At one point, he's like, oh, it'd be cool if we had these flowers in between the cracks going into the school. All right, let's get in my truck. we're gonna go pick up some flowers or whatever.
So I can't hear you right now.
Oh no.
Yeah, I haven't been able to hear you since you started talking.
Oh no. Well,
yeah.
I will talk for now.
Should we try and I don't know? Should I try and hang up the call or something?
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
Okay.
You can go ahead and drop. Sorry, I got distracted. Anyway, he just has these these very distinct ways of doing everything. He has okay. He has all these like mentalities. There's like a very particular moment I want to reference, but I can't because it spoils everything. But he just has his way of doing everything, and in particular, one of the more kind of soul crushing things is he himself was never in an art school. He never went to any of them, but he's like a relatively famous artist in their area. As you know, despite that, he's gone on to create a lot of cool work. And he really takes a liking to Higashimura, and he keeps talking to her about one day doing like a co-event, like an event where they both show off their art. And he always speaks of it so frankly, as if like, yeah, like, you know, when you go home, start working on your art. We're gonna do an art show together, and like it comes up frequently throughout this manga that he is just so confident that this is gonna happen, and it breaks your heart to know because you're reading it through Gashimura's eyes, where she's like, I never had any intention of doing one of these shows. Even when she was into fine art, and not even really into it, but when she was doing it, she didn't really have much of a goal. And then eventually her life becomes about manga, and she's just like, why? I don't know why I would go back to fine art. I make money drawing manga, but my fine art doesn't make any money, and it's really expensive.
She has this very frank explanation of why she doesn't want to do fine art, and it's not just that, you know, it's expensive, it's that it takes a lot of work. You know, she's talking about, like, you know, doing portraits and stuff, working with big canvases and agonizing over every square inch of it. Whereas when she does manga, she could just explode onto the page and it just works out fine. She is just, you know, her skill set and her attitude is just much more suited towards creating manga than it is towards painting. And, you know, like, at the same time, what makes it extra tragic is that there is a moment eventually where, as manga is taking over more and more of her life, she does eventually say to Sensei, like, "Look, I've got to do all this manga stuff. You know, I'm a published author and everything, and I know you don't like manga." And he's like, "I never said I don't like manga. Manga's proper art." And it's just one of those things where it's like, not only would she have potentially like gotten to do more things with him if she had like heard him out, but also if she had just been willing to share more with him, then
Yeah.
it would have also improved their relationship. She always has this like image in her head of like who he is as this disciplinarian, but in reality, he's just a massive art dork, and he really greatly admires Hayashi's skills and abilities, and she doesn't seem to grasp that until way, way, way too late.
Yeah. The entire, as we noted early on, the entire manga is kind of written through the vantage point of somebody who is regretfully or remorsefully looking back on everything. Like, she's able to look at all these things now and be like, at the time I thought this was really annoying, but now I realize he must have driven, you know, at one point she has like an artist block. She can't figure anything out, and it's becoming like a big issue. She's potentially gonna like maybe drop out of college because of this, or fail out of college. It's an awful thing. So her parents, who are really concerned, call the sensei up, and he comes and visits her in her house to try to like kick her out of this writing block. And of course, like, it's not like you would write in like a standard thing where he shows up, it's like, hey, everything's okay. He's like, what the fuck you doing? Draw! Like, he shows, like, he has this very distinct way of handling everything. But she realizes, like, in this reminiscing moment, she's like, he didn't have a car. All he had was a moped, and it's over an hour to my place. Like, he must have driven on that moped for an hour, had to look up where my house was, which was kind of confusing, and then driven all the way back just to kick me out of this funk. And he didn't ask anything of it. He's just, as you said, he just really liked art and really wanted to help out his students. And that's sort of the person who you really come to just be like, you know, nothing good happens, because from pretty much the very beginning, everything's told in like, writing a
He
letter to
was
heaven.
this
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, you're like, oh, maybe now he's like a rock star. But yeah, like at least for me, I just kept reading it, hoping like maybe he is still alive? Question mark. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, everybody.
It was weird to see some comments at various points when I would start a new volume of people be like, "Sensei better not be dead," and it's like, come on, like you just read the rest of the series up to this point.
In my sense, it was pure denial. I just kept denying that he was dead. But yeah, I need to note now why this series hit me so hard. If you are a longtime fan of this show, you probably know this. But if it's your first time, hello, what a strange episode to come in for your first time, but welcome. I have a particular soft spot for old men. For some reason, I don't like seeing them sad. There was a character for a manga we read. His name was Amori. He didn't get, he had peanuts that got knocked to the ground, and I was emotionally devastated for months about it. I kept saying, like, when is Amori going to get his peanuts? And that's like a running joke with the show. This series is about fucking Amori walking up with an empty bag of peanuts being like, would you fill this up? And this girl just knocks it to the ground and runs away. And she does it for years. It's so brutal. There are so many scenes that are absolutely heart-wrenching because she looks back on it now and she's like, clearly he just wanted to spend time with me. Yeah. Clearly he just wanted to get to know me a little bit better. Clearly he just really went out of his way for me, and I never gave him the attention he needed, or maybe not needed, but I should have reciprocated or just been honest with him.
A lot of it does come down to that feeling that you have of grandma's getting up there. I really should spend more time with her, but it's a lot more direct, and although at some certain points I feel like Higashimura is a bit hard on herself, just because of the matter of look, the relationship between kids and adults who are important to them in their life is that the adults give and the kids, are the ones who take. It's just the way that things are, because look, you're going to be around longer than they are, almost certainly.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of it is coded by that, and that sense of I should have done more in return, when it's it's okay. They knew what they were doing at the time. It's not like you were taking advantage of them. That's just the way that the relationship between kids and adults is. But admittedly, there are points where literally he goes to visit her in college, and she actively avoids him while he is staying at her place.
That's the one that's so brutal. It's so painful.
It's like her boyfriend likes him.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I got some fish and I cooked it and I made sashimi for us. And she's like, "Oh my God, you're embarrassing." And she's like, "Look, just eat a little bit, and then we could go out eating together. It's fine." And he's like, "Oh, this sashimi is great. Your teacher is awesome."
There's that point happens after she started to make a little bit of money from drawing manga, and she's like, "We went on a lavish food eating exploration, and even now when I talk to this guy, he's like, nothing was better than that slapjack, though. Holy shit, that sashimi was fucking on point."
And yeah, she just did not really appreciate these kinds of things that he was doing for her. And I think that a lot of it is down to the idea comes across when she talks about it, that she attached her teacher to the level of anxiety that he would produce in her sometimes, in terms of, and not just he would produce in her, but that art would produce in her. She was running away from being forced to do fine art, which she didn't like doing, and his whole approach was to force people to just get over, no, stop thinking about what am I going to draw, stop overthinking it, look at what you're going to draw it, just get it done, put what you see in front of you on the page. And if you can just do that, with a whole bunch of different things, then you'll always be able to draw. And as a result of that, there was this real like drill sergeant thing, and she hated making this kind of art. So it makes sense that she runs away from him because he's so heavily associated with that. But then it gets to a point, of course, where, she's a mangaka, and she's like, the fact that he taught me that lesson of just draw has saved me so many times. I can be horribly depressed, I can be sick, and I can just keep on drawing because nothing can stop me because of how he taught me that and how he made that like coded into me. So it's one of those things where it's like, look, I fully understand why you're feeling guilty and why you ran away. At the same time, it's very well illustrated in that sense. And I also have to admit that like it took me a little bit to get into relating to Hayashi, because
she sucks early on. You hate her.
She also sucks in a particular way that literally, and I don't mean this to sound like arrogant or anything, but she talks about like, struggling with school in a way that I literally cannot relate to. Where she's just like, yeah, so I was just always bad at school stuff and I could never understand anything. And it's like, okay, I have difficulty relating to that.
Nick's like, I was always a little too smart for that.
That has nothing to do with it. It was literally like learning like good study habits early on, which apparently she did not. But then when she gets into like, and then I went away into college and I just did not do schoolwork. And I was like, there we go.
Now you're lining up with old Freeman here. One thing I do want to stress, because we've been talking a lot about like how this is very like reminiscent and there's a lot of sadness in it and there's all these things. I need to stress this is also a very funny manga. This is like a comedy mixed with like a slice of life and then like a little bit of this, dramatic tale with her sensei. But like for a large part of this series, it's just meant to be like kind of silly, like here's what I did here and oh my god, I can't believe but I did this and all these sorts of things. And there are like legitimate like very funny moments, and there's funny moments with like the sensei and everything too. Like she talks like at one point about how she went on a trip to Italy and he was like, oh, can you pick me up these books because they don't sell them here in Japan. And she picks them up, but then she was like, she found like cute little fucking jams from like a diner and she's like, oh, these are so cute, and just they got smashed in between the books, and then the sensei's like, this is awesome. He doesn't care. He's so excited to get his little nerd books, and I was like, that's so charming.
I think that my favorite bit is that there is a student who starts in his class a little bit after Hayashi, who is like obsessed with like conspiracy theories and the word of Nostradamus and stuff. And keep in mind that this is this is the timeline of this is in Higashimura's life. So this is like the 90s when she starts to go to his class. And so this classmate of hers is saying like, oh yeah, the world's going to end on the new millennium. Nostradamus, it's going to happen. There's not going to be a world. And so the teacher's like, all right, if the world is still around on January 1st, 2000, then you're going to pay me like $100,000 something like that. And of course it happens, and it's like oh yeah, we have a big laugh about it. It's like, no, he like bothers him constantly about it. It's like, so when are you gonna pay me that $100,000?
It's great.
So this kid who's like just started going to college, like, where's the $100,000 you owe me?
It's great. Yeah, he really does just nail this kid down to be like, hey, you made a bet with me, you owe me that money, god damn it. Yeah, it's legit. It's I do agree with you, and I agree from the vantage point of like, as we watch this, having not known Sensei ourselves, you are able to look at some things he does and be like, okay, I don't think you necessarily need to feel bad about this. This might have been an L on his part or something like that. Like there's several times where she's just like, oh my gosh, like he wouldn't give up about this like thing we're going to do together, the art show we're going to do together. And I was like, he also knows you were busy with manga and just assumes you'll make time for that. And he does it because that's what he does in his life. He teaches this school all day and goes out to all these farmers markets and everything like that. And then at the end of the day, he just squeezes in time to do his own art. And you know, there's some of these things that you're like, I don't think you need to feel bad. Like, he is putting some of this on you, but it also, there's an element too of he has this very particular relationship with her that's like both teacher student and like a little bit father daughter. Not exactly. Her parents are both still in the picture, but there is definitely like a paternal element to their relationship as well, because he really does look out for her and is genuinely sweet at times that she kind of has him to rely on in moments where it otherwise seems really, really bad. You know, like she fails getting into one school and she feels like she's doing really bad at the last school she's attending, and you know, he gives a call up just to be like, hey, don't worry about it, don't think too hard on it, just get back in there and draw. This is what we've been practicing for. And there's a moment that I thought was really sweet. It's not even about her. There's an old man who's been coming to her classes. He's just starting to draw for the first time in his life. Sensei's like, draw this tissue box. And
and she's like, don't you, isn't he doing this for his own like entertainment? Don't you want him to draw something a little bit more fun to draw? He's like, no, he needs to draw a tissue box.
And like she comes back years later and he's still drawing the tissue box. And she's like, please, he comes to this art school, teach him something beyond the tissue box. But then it cuts to an art show he's doing where he's showcasing some of his students' work. And the tissue box is up there. And he's like, Higashimura, you gotta come over here and check out the tissue box. He finally did it. And I was like, I almost like, I like almost applauded the manga at that point. I was like, yes, he did the tissue box. It's genuinely very sweet and very, very amusing at times.
Yeah. And there's a moment as well where Hayami, I think it is. I think that's the name we settled on for her. I can't remember.
I just think about Higashimura. I couldn't. I was like, I tried to look it up.
No. Fuyumi, the other girl that she starts taking the class with. Oh, yeah. She kind of like she kind of fades into the background over time because she becomes less central to Higashimura's life with time. Although it's established at a certain point that like she still keeps up with her, which is nice considering that she's known her for like 25 years by that point. But they go to apply to schools together, and if they go to one that's like out in the sticks to apply to, and he's like, yeah, I'm not going to take the entrance exam for this one because if this is the only one that I pass, my parents will force me to come here, and I don't want to go to this place that's out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, I thought it was that she already knew she got accepted into the other one.
No, she didn't know by that point. I think they had both failed an exam by that point. So she was like, "Look, if this is the only one I get into, then I'm going to be forced by my parents to come here, and I'm not doing that shit."
It is great. Higashimura was like, "Hey, we gotta get to the exam." She's like, "Nah, not gonna do it." Just hung out in a hotel room and watched fucking like movies all day. I guess we haven't really talked about. This is also like the biography of a woman who draws manga, so a lot of this is just like, here's how I started making manga and like the process of it. Like, not to codify it as like the thing, but if you enjoyed seeing that behind the curtains kind of look at Bakuman, you get a non-gross version of it here. I don't know how else to say it, but like she goes on to explain like, yeah, I had to start use screen tones, and in my first manga, my mom would help me apply them because I didn't have time. I didn't have assistants or anything like that, and that was something to do.
Yeah.
And she'll go on to explain like the inking process and like how these things, like how she started going from like newcomers competitions to getting serialized and like failed projects along the way. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, she talks about like some things that like, oh yeah, I just kind of drew this thing, and the editors are like, what the hell is the point of this? It's like, well, it's about this, like that doesn't come across well, we can't run this. And just like very blunt, like, nope, can't run this, no, draw this instead, you can do 200 pages, right?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many brutal moments where you're just like, oh god, this hellscape. But it's genuinely, I think, very interesting if you like to know more about like the manga creation process, particularly if you like to know about like older manga creation process, because Higashimura was like creating manga into like, starting back in like the early 2000s. So there's like some stuff that like they
Right.
were doing. This is before things started to like really get heavily digitalized, that are very like curious and interesting. She's like reminiscing for the days gone by where they used to like run to an like a weird old like kind of like inside shop to be like, hey, can you get this to this other place in an amount of time? And they're like, yeah, we're gonna take it on the fucking bullet train, and then their
Yeah.
editor would be waiting on the other end to pick it up, and you're like, I don't know, there's something very like interesting about how reminiscent they are for something so very specific that I could appreciate.
Even now, just the idea, because there's a bit where she is just kind of lugging her manuscript around in a big envelope, and it's like, wow, that you probably wouldn't do that nearly so often these days. It would be like, no, scan that shit and send it to someone.
One of the more brutal, hard hitting moments of the manga comes from the fact that a fax didn't go through.
Yeah.
And because of that, she has to leave her sensei at a time where she's like, ah, I actually had planned to stay longer. I'll see you again, though. Don't worry. And you're like, nowadays, you'd have just clicked a couple buttons and sent it over, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it didn't exist then.
Should we talk about the spoiler?
Yeah, I mean, we've been pretty clear about the fact that
It's not what happens. It's how it happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's very true to form. So eventually, Higashimura receives a phone call from her sensei, and it's kind of a running thing throughout the book that she kind of knows when her sensei is calling her, and she dreads it. She oftentimes just wouldn't pick it up because she knew it was him. This is, of course, again, before caller ID or any of those things existed. This was just like a sixth sense that some people had. And I kind of know what it's like. There were times where you're just like, I know this is, my mom or, my school or whatever. It's a bad phone call. But she does get that feeling when a call comes in, but she's like, fuck. And her mom or her boyfriend at the time is like, you should probably pick this up. So she picks it up, and it's her teacher. He's like, hey, I have lung cancer. They say I have 4 months to live. Can you come back to Miyaki? I think is where they're from, or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Come back to her hometown, basically where I live, the art studio. And because that's all the information she got. She's flying on this plane on the way home, and she is immediately catastrophizing everything. She's like, "Holy shit, he's going to die! What's going to happen? What's going to happen to this school? All these things." And by the time she is landed on the plane, she has already convinced herself. She's like, I'm going to quit making manga for a bit, and I'm going to take over the school that he does. And like, she's so confident. She's like, he reached out to me and just me, because he even noted on the phone, he's like, you're the only person I've told so far. And then she gets to the studio, and there's like 12 other fucking students there. He's like, yeah, these are some other people I also told after I called you. Help me carry some of my art shit out of here. And it's like, that's the moment that really encapsulates this character, in that, like, it's like the terror of being like, oh my God, he's dying. I have to be there for him. And then everyone gets there, and he's like, can you help me move some shit? Like, it all comes from logical. And he's like trying to sell her stuff. He's like, hey, I don't have insurance, so for all this dying shit, I'm going to need some money. So buy this vase. Just buy it.
Yeah, don't you want this for like $50? Yeah, take it. You want it?
And
Come
it
on.
is sweet
It's
that
great.
she still has it. She knows, like, yeah,
Yeah.
I still look at it all the time. I put different flowers in it. But like, it was rough reading it, because the last volume is just like, for me, like, heavy sobbing, interspersely broken up by like silly moments about how this guy just is like this weird machine and doesn't really follow any of the rules you would expect, and then immediately moves into more sadness. So
Yeah.
it's good stuff.
There's a nice bit where like she goes to visit him because like she does help out for a little bit, but she's like, I mean, fuck, he's fine. He's not suddenly bedridden, and he's got all these other people helping out. I'm gonna go back to doing manga stuff. I'm going to go and do my career. And then she comes and visits him later. He's still doing fine, and they like go out for a walk together. They just kind of reminisce a bit, and they bond a little bit. There's a sad note that it closes on, because she thinks like, if we'd walked a little bit further, we could have gone to the beach, and we had never been to the beach together, despite the fact that we lived in this coastal area the entire time. Like, that's just like one of those, like, one of the many things that we just just never did together, and that's why it makes her sad. And then it gets to a point after she'd be like, he's fine, and she goes to visit him one time, and he is basically bedridden,
Yeah.
and he's
But
coughing
still
all the
making art.
time,
Still making art.
still going, because it's just like his thing that he does. And she has this big reflection of like he looks so much smaller and weaker. She remembers like how like when he would carry her back when she was young, how big and strong his back looked, and now she looks at me. He's like looks so skinny now and so weak. And then she gets called away for work again, and that's just the last time that she talks to him. Apparently,
Yeah.
He just dies because he has cancer, and she thinks like, yeah, this isn't some big dramatic story where like I was there with him on his deathbed and he passed his last words on to me. Like, no, he just died when I wasn't there, and that's just kind of it. And she goes to his funeral, and one of my favorite, I think my favorite moment in the whole sequence is, like afterwards, like, because they have this nice funeral, like where all of his students show up, and then they go out drinking together, and they're having a nice time remembering him. And the student who owed him $100,000,
Nostradamus kid.
yeah, talks about how like, just a couple. I was there. I was like one of the last people to see him.
It was like
because
last
he came.
week.
Yeah, he came to see an art gallery where I was like, going to like be drawing stuff live in front of the audience. And he was like so weak, he could barely talk anymore. He was in a wheelchair. And while I was there to, draw in front of all these people, I just froze up. I couldn't think what to do. And he called me over and he could barely speak. So I had to lean in real close so that he could whisper to me. And he said, just draw. And it just gave him a kick in the pants and he was fine again. And it was just that note of like, he was still the same person up until the very, very end. He cared so much about his students that he could barely get out of bed, and he went to this guy's art exhibit and he gave him the same advice in order to get him out of a funk that he gave all of his students. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty awesome. And that like that's the moment where like everyone's like, oh my god, he was so great, and they start all crying and stuff when like all of them have just been kind of like, well, he's gone, and they're like, oh, he was so great.
Yeah, it was like a note that nobody really cried at the funeral, and then after hearing that story, like hanging out at the old art house or everything like that, everyone just starts crying. Yeah, I mean, it's tough to talk about the last volume for me because it's very much the ramifications. I think he like starts to like I think like the end of the fourth volume is he has cancer, and then the fifth volume is just like him dying, and Gashimura kind of talking about like I was really busy at this time, and they had like moved me to a different city. I was like in Tokyo now. And I like all these things that happened, and she's like reminiscing. She's like, I wish I never got you never got to meet my son, and I really wish he would have, because there's a lot of lessons I feel like he could have taught my little boy. Like I got divorced, I fell into some deep depressions, like all these things. And it's heavy. Like it's again, there's still silliness, there's still fun, there's still explanations of how to make manga in there, but it is sort of like the core of the series, the heart of the series at that point is you're just like, she's dealing with the ramifications of like, yeah, and then my sensei died and I lost this person, and now I'm, 10 years older than I was that back then or whatever, and I really regret all these things that I didn't do. She's like, I should have taken like a gap year off from making manga. Like I was pretty popular. I think I could have done that and like come back and stuff like that. And there's sad stuff in there. I really, I guess, just want to say like I really enjoyed this manga. It's extraordinarily well done. There's just a lot of powerful sentiment in it. It's very funny. There are some stories I really like. She tells a story at one point of working at like a used bookstore, and how she was like really good at wrapping books. And there's like a great panel where she just has like this face. She's like, I can do it all. And
They're like, yeah, it gets to be too much once you try and like wrap up like 10 books together. You know that no one could do that. Just, oh, 20 books.
Yeah, it's and she's like, I've never had any real like no one's ever been as good at anything as I was at wrapping books. But there's like great moments like that. There's great moments. It's just like discussing an artist's life. I think I'm very interested in like hearing her go to an art school and also in a weird way not enjoy being at an art school at all. Like she's just like, I really just wanted to party and hang out.
Yep.
I did not want to be at schoolwork. I basically coasted my way through the entire fucking
Pretty
thing.
much. Yep.
And it's just, this is a really, really good manga that I'd highly recommend people checking out if this sounds interesting to you. I guess if at this point you've probably been like, but I know the old man dies. It's like, well, you should have known he was dead from the beginning.
There's some pretty...
You could be like me and hope I was wrong. Maybe I'm lying to you. And he survives at the end.
There is some pretty hilarious projection that she does when she talks about, like, you know, being a lazy art student, where she's just like, listen, parents everywhere, if your kid tells you they want to go to art school, be warned. All art students are lazy motherfuckers who can't get their heads out of the clouds. They never do anything. They just want to goof around, and that's it. That's all any of them do. And it's like, I mean, that's all you did. Whatever.
But she worked with other kids. I guess she's like saying like the other kids were very similar to that as well. And there's just fun people she's met throughout her life as well. Like she'll just tell stories.
There's nice little stories that she has, like, you know, just very real, dumb little stories about people that she meets. Like, oh yeah, there was this older student at the school who had this one jacket. I went to a class reunion recently. He was still wearing the same jacket like 20 years later.
I love the one where there's like a male student and he's bragging about like the curry he makes. And he invites a bunch of the like female students over to his place, and he lives in like a 1-bedroom that's like half art, so there's nowhere to sit. They're all just like scrunched up against one of his canvases, and then he serves them this famous curry, and they're like, okay, and he's like, yep, I make it just like the box says. And they're all like, boys are fucking stupid. These dumb idiots have no idea how to cook and are just impressed by the one motherfucker who knows how to read it and follow instructions in the box.
Yeah, it definitely feels real while you're reading it. Just the amount of dumb little details like that, and the amount of, you know, like self criticism that she does. Dula, you know, is like, look, there is no way that she is making this stuff up, because she is putting herself on blast through a lot of this. And, you know, some stories that people have to tell are just very, very interesting in that way, if you are able to just really delve into the emotion of that. So in that regard, yeah, it's very well done. I don't think that I emotionally resonated with this series nearly as much as you did. But from my more cold-hearted perspective, it's still good.
You didn't add at least 5 beans to the bean jar?
I don't think I cried while reading this. So.
You're a monster. You're a stone-hearted monster. I don't understand. I like legit. Maybe I also take estrogen. So I guess that applies a little bit to Nick. You start taking regularly estrogen for about 1.5 years, and then we'll see if you don't cry throughout this manga.
I think that I will just forfeit that bet, Quinn.
All right, you owe me $150,000, just like the Nostradamus kid.
I walked into this. No.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, guys, if what we've talked about has not scared you away from checking it out, yes, as Quinn said earlier, the series is available through 7 Seas Entertainment if you want to check it out in English. I should note, to end things on a much more lighthearted note, the English title for this series is Blank Canvas, My So-Called Artist Journey. It is nothing at all akin to a literal translation of the title. The title literally translates to so-and-so such and such, the Japanese title, I should say. But if you say it in Japanese, it's kaku kaku shikajika, which is much more fun to say than Blank Canvas. So,
yeah. All right, we have manga to talk about. We have a full collection of manga to talk about. Well, not full. We're missing one piece in my hair.
yeah, no My Hero to start with, and no One Piece to conclude on. So we're gonna start things off with Undead Unluck.
With
Yes.
me, Undead Unluck. This is number 160. Welcome to Earth. So last
Welcome
time,
to Earth.
yeah, last time Phil got this doll artifact that's name I completely blanked on. They told us last week. I've forgotten. Anyway, he's like a doll artifact boy now.
Wasn't it like memory or something, or it was in trust?
Something like that. I can't. I honestly, I just forgot.
Entruster.
Oh, that's right, because we did this Finger 11 joke, because it's like paralyzer, but it's not really. It's just a noun, like a verb that I added like an ER to. Anyway, Phil has bursted this thing. The group is like, all right, cool, Phil, get on the ship. We can get out of here now. But then the Queen like lurches into action, and I'll be honest, it took me a really hard time to distinguish this art. I guess the Queen kind of catches the ship in like one of its like little chitin pieces of armor, or whatever you'd call it, like its little scales, and it's latched on to like, shit, we can't open the escape hatch, like we can't get anybody on board the ship. And Phil like immediately shoots into action. He's ready to do this. Nico's like, no, we've already seen that there's nothing that can really take this guy out. Like, that surprise attack from the inside was the only thing that was effective on it. But then Fuko's like, wait, no, I think I get it. Those things react to feelings, and Phil has unfeel, so they are not on guard for him at all, and he can land an attack, and he turns his arms into two giant blades, and they're giant scissors now. And he's like, wait a minute, that's right. Nothing's worked on it except the door managed to cut one of those things in half. So sheer stress is the only thing that works against them. Bravo, Phil, my boy. And he just cuts the Queen in half.
It's actually really satisfying to see it happen, because, last time we had the thing, and I know, like, I don't know if I'm really into this whole big, moment that Phil had. Him turning his arms into giant scissors and cutting the thing in half. It's like, yeah, all right, that's pretty great. And I do really love that they did, in fact, foreshadow that this was the weakness of these things, with a door cutting one in half, seemingly randomly.
Yes. So. It's very, very cool. Phil gets back on board. They're like, all right, we can head out here now. Chitin. All right, well, now I know another thing.
It is.
I've only ever seen it on armor.
I've only ever seen it written down.
Yeah. I've only ever read it in books. So like, all right, cool, let's launch this down, and they're headed back. But at this point, Chica calls and is like, hey, something's wrong with the trajectory. Nico immediately is like, yeah, it's because these two doofuses got on board. Sorry about that. She's like, no, it's not that. Something is latched onto the ship, and you won't even be able to deploy your parachute right now. Like, your calculations are no good. And they note, like, oh shit, it's the eggs. Those things like must have placed eggs all over our ship, and we're fucked now. We can't open our parachute. If our trajectory is wrong, we could land in a city, and like hundreds could die. And in that moment, Phil has already left the ship again, and he's fucking like Astro Boy holding this ship up and changing the trajectory on its own. And everyone's like, no, you're going to die. What can we do? They're like, we can't really do anything until we're out of the atmosphere. No one will survive outside of that besides him. And we get this little flashback of Phil and his mom. And he's like, hey, when all this research is over, can we go to Earth? And his mom, which I really wish they'd given her a name, because I just say Phil's mom all the time. She's just like, yeah, even
Felissa.
Felicity is...
No, Felissa.
Okay, Felissa is just like, yeah, even if someone tries to stop us, we're going to do it. And Phil's just like, oh, then maybe I can make some friends who could play Ayatori. And she's like, oh, yeah, I know you're going to. I'm sure there will be people who can count on you and will support you as well. They're out of the atmosphere now. Immediately, Fuko and Gina jump into action. Fuko is, like, helping to destroy some of the the little eggs. And Gina's out there fighting. But they realize that Phil is falling apart at this point. He's literally just breaking apart. So Gina takes off her visor, pulls off her glove, and grabs onto Phil with her hand, because she says, if I touch him, Phil's body won't change. It won't crumble. But Fuko's like, his body is super hot right now. You're going to burn your hand. She is screaming. She's like, this is really painful. But she also notes, hey, Phil, now you can go overboard and be okay. Put the pedal to the metal. Just believe in me. No, in us in the Union, and we get like a montage kind of everybody else like doing the big grin. Phila Micio, whatever her name is crying, but even Sean's just like, yeah, your kid's gonna be okay. They're gonna make it to Earth. They're going to. Boom! Crashes into the middle of what I assume is a river because there are trees on both sides. It's a very deep river, I guess. And immediately, Phil's mom jumps out of the escape hatch. She's like, I gotta find Phil. I gotta find Phil. We see Fuko, who's worried for a moment, and she like sighs in relief as Gina has like floated up holding Phil, and she gives a big thumbs up. And we end with a big 2-page spread as Fuko confidently says, "Welcome to Earth." And there's a big...
And then she shoots and then she stomps the alien in the head.
Yeah, crush. It's very, very sweet.
Yeah, it's a satisfying conclusion to the mini Phil arc. I really like the moment that we have with Gina. I do like that, we've got this, bond that's kind of been forged between Phil and some members of the team now to really introduce him into the fold. And it does feel like very emotional and big when it's happening. I get this like kind of vibe of like, oh, this is the part where like, the song with vocals plays when he's like holding the ship up and thinking about like what it's going to be like to have friends and stuff. It's very sweet. It's bizarrely innocent for the stuff that we have seen come before it, which because just like, yay, we're gonna have friends now. That's just kind of it. Nice.
I mean, it's interesting to me because Phil is someone who we still know almost nothing about what the other world was like, but this felt very close, at least maybe not in terms of quality, but in terms of like tone to when we had Void's arc, where it was like we saw like sort of the difference. We saw everyone kind of step up to the occasion. And then it was like this moment of like, hey, here, we're going to recruit you by kind of helping you come to terms with some of your insecurities and things like that as like a big welcoming moment into our group. So even though we don't know, like there is a relief of knowing like, I don't think Phil's mom made it in the last loop. And he does seem to, it's like a very sweet thing to know that he has his mom in this world. It's nice.
It doesn't count anymore. We hit the reset button. Death has no meaning.
Hey, we'll talk about that series in a little bit, Nick.
Oh boy. So yeah, it was a good ride, and I'm glad that things picked back up from where I was a little bit disheartened last time. Let's talk about Chainsaw Man. Chapter 131, Taste of Crap! Last time, as Denji and Asa were riding the chainsaw motorcycle, the demon thing that the Falling Devil was trying to feed them to reared up in front of them, and the only way that Denji really has to avoid it is to just kind of like turn the motorcycle sideways so that it kind of sticks in the thing's teeth for a second. And the Falling Devil comes up and says, I did say diners who don't finish their food must die, but the food isn't supposed to be able to run.
I love this.
And she points a finger.
The food isn't supposed to be able to run.
Points her finger and forces Denji and Asa to fall into the devil's mouth. And it swallows them both. And the Falling Devil approaches and says, how is the taste of humans steeped in fear? And the two of them just kind of look at each other for a beat. And then the devil goes, and vomits both of them up. Just horribly. Just there's so much gross crap coming out of its maw when this happens. And the Falling Devil gets really, really upset. And she says, I made that meal with love. How dare you throw it up? Die!
It fucking like laser from Earth nukes this thing. Or from space nukes this thing.
She hits it with something so hard that it vomits up its own intestines and dies immediately.
Yeah, Fujimoto was writing this series.
Yeah. And but importantly, of course, Asa and Denji were vomited up, and they're collapsed in a heap on top of each other, both clearly totally out of it. And the Falling Devil takes a moment and realizes what has happened, and she turns and bows and says, I sincerely apologize. I failed to feed Asamitaka to the diner. And it's famine. of course. Famine just says, okay, return. And the falling devil falls apart and kind of just burns away and just turns into, a bunch of body parts that she had been summoned from.
Yep.
So Fami picks up this idol of some sort that appears to be like a Power Rangers like shrunken idol version that you summon the main monster from, of the falling devil. So she picks it up and is holding it in her hand, and she says, "How'd you make the devil barf them up?" Control. And Nayuta is there. Of course she is. And she says, "I just controlled the devil's brain a teensy bit to make humans taste like literal crap." And there is a chain that is trailing out of the devil's head, the diner devil's head. And she asks Famine, like, "Why are you after Denji and the girl, sis?" And Famine says, "Nostradamus' prophecy is coming true."
The guy from Blank Space, maybe he gets it in this universe. He doesn't owe the 150,000.
That's right. She says the ultimate terror will soon descend on this world. If that happens, the age of humans will end, ushering in an age of devils. And Nayuta says, "Well, that sounds like fun." And Famine's like, "No, I don't want it. If an age of devils comes, things like pizza and Chinese food will cease to be."
No!
So, of course, Famine's like, "I don't want these foods to go away." And Nayuta's like, "No more pizza, no!"
Spoken like a true 6-year-old or however old she's supposed to be.
And Famine says, "Yes, it's the worst scenario imaginable. No more pizza." And she says that at this rate, neither you nor Chainsaw Man can stop the prophecy, but War Devil could be made to win, possibly. And so Nayuta's like, "Well, then why'd you just try and kill her?" And Famine says, No. My only intention was to starve War inside the devil's belly. I can turn the starved into my pawns. Work with me, Control. With our strength combined, the age of devils may not arrive." And there's a little pause. And Nayuta says, "No way!" "Why not?" "Because I have school." We immediately cut to her going to class.
This is one of the funniest fucking things. And she's so annoying in school as well. Like, raise your hand.
Me! Call me!
I love it so much. It's so stupid but funny. This is a great chapter. This is so funny. It's like a lot of cool lore being like dropped off right now. Like, hey, the connection of like, Control Nayuta is potentially like another one of these 4 horsemen, sort of devils and all these things. But just the hilarity of no way, because I have school. And the funniest way to end that is the hard cut to her in class the next day.
I think that my favorite part of it is just the look that Famine gives her response to this. Just the ultimate, like, "You have got to fucking be kidding me. Are you serious right now? Think of the pizza, Nayuta!"
I have school. They don't always let us have pizza in school.
Oh, man. Yeah, there's so much that is, like, so much lore, so much, like, oh my god, so this is what's been happening. So many cool little moments, like the fact that Famine apparently has just controlled the falling devil into doing all this stuff. The idea that, so that was what was happening when they were trapped in the aquarium before. She was just trying to starve Asa enough for her to fall under her control. And then just to end it all on that note of just Nayuta being the brattiest little kid. It's like, "No, I gotta go to school." "I gotta go to school, which I'm awesome at."
Yeah, which I fucking love. Really, really funny chapter. Good stuff.
Yes. Let's continue it with another awesome chapter. Oh, because it is It is Eden Zero next, right?
No, it's
Great.
Kaiju number 8, and then we have Spy
Oh my
Family.
God! Thank God.
Well, you were like,
Oh, thank
when you
God.
said great, I was like, it's an okay
It's all right.
Kaiju number 8 chapter. I don't know if I lost my mind over it or anything.
For a chapter that focuses on Narumi, yeah, it's all right. We get a flashback chapter involving Narumi in chapter number 86 of Kaiju number 8, of when he was, just kind of a loser recruit who could never get the Captain Iharu, not Iharu, fuck. What's oh God, I've forgotten Kikoru's family name. Oh well.
Isao something.
Isao. Yeah, so you could never get Captain Isao to, acknowledge him. He was always just like, well, you sure suck. You're sure incompetent. And so now Narumi is, fighting against this water kaiju guy. He can't use any of his abilities. He can't use his foresight, impulse reading things. And so, he tries to use one of his techniques. And the guy's just like, I know that one. Number 1 was called the Future Sight Kaiju, but the truth is it's just pseudo foresight. You just read the electrical signals in your target's body and use that to predict their movements. You can't actually predict the movements of an inorganic threat that homes in on you automatically. And on top of that, this thing has, just in keeping up with the fact that Narumi is this incredible close quarters combatant, and he's just like, yeah, I know that too, and just blocks the slash that Narumi unleashes. He goes for another one. He's like, yeah, know this move too. Look, I know all your techniques. He just lists all of them off. After all, I was given Isao Shinamiya's memories. And he does this, double punch thing in order to knock Narumi on his ass. And he says, this is a letdown, Gen Narumi. There are words in my memories that I will deliver in place of your master. I don't need an incompetent officer. Die here. Just we're going like, you're such a disappointment. You're such a disappointment. And everyone's like, yeah, if it has even Isao's memories, Isao, who died like Hikaru's mother.
Yeah, this dude really needs to get his shit together.
Then there is nothing that Narumi can do, and there's just a little pew, and just a little laser bullet just hits the kaiju. And it's like, all right, it just grazed me. It's just a fluke. And Narumi says, there's no need to give me that look, Mr. Isao. And he's just kind of glaring at the specter of Isao, who is, in the background, leering over the actual opponent that he's fighting. And he says, I'm going to wow the hell out of you. And he just immediately charges in and chops the thing's hand off. And that's where the chapter ends.
It is a cool thing. Hey, I'm going to go beyond and show you a little bit about how cool I am and whatnot. And I do like the image of he is facing down his mentor Isao's sort of memory / persona a little bit. He has seen kind of a visage of him fighting this thing. So I think that's kind of cool. It's still not my favorite character. So there's a ceiling to how much I can kind of get hyped for this, but this is good, I think, actually.
All right, let's talk about Spy Family. And see if I can make sense of what happens here,
chapter
because there's so much.
Neither of us really seem to have any recollection of.
So this chapter introduces us, Mission 81, introduces us to Winston Wheeler, who is in Wistalis intelligence, but is also a spy put there by Ostania, and has been passing Western secrets to them. And we get this kind of lowdown as Fiona and Lloyd are being driven to work on this case of the spy purge that has happened. And there's a nice note actually that where Lloyd says I actually worked a mission with him once. He's really talented. And so, but they're told by mustache agent guy who is kind of recurring whenever the actual larger spy organization gets involved in the story. He says that Wheeler is not the only mole in the game. We've got our own guys digging away at Eastern bureaus, but be careful because their agents are well aware that Wise is getting in the way, blah, blah, blah. So they say okay, well, we may need to consider stopping all our active operations in the East, including Operation Strix. And just, start fresh later. That's what Fiona's suggestion is, and Lloyd's like, no, if we do that, then it would take years before we could get back close to Damien, to Desmond rather again. And the handler has ordered us to recover the file, so that's what we've got to do. And then they enter into SSS territory in Northwest Estadia, and also Yuri is there undercover, and he's there with several other undercover agents. They're like, all right, we gotta meet up with this guy in order to get stuff from him. Lloyd and Fiona start like disguising up as well to head into the scene. Winston Wheeler gets contact regarding a meeting. He gets in disguise and approaches Yuri. Just immediately spots him, and he's like, "Hey, you a new recruit? Hey, just act normal." And Yuri's immediately like, "How the fuck does he know I'm a member of the SSS? Wait a minute, no. He might not be the real Winston Wheeler. It could be Twilight in disguise." But then he sees that he's wearing a gemstone tie pin and a green tie. It's really him, because like there's no way that
no one else would know.
No one could know that to wear that tie. So Wheeler tells him, like, look, tell your superiors that this hotel has a serious rat problem and I'm changing the location. Meet me at this park in 30 minutes. Yeah, it's like Fiona and Lloyd and the other spy realize, like, shit, this guy somehow sensed that we were here waiting for him, and instead he's changed the meeting location, so we can't get close to him. And Wheeler approaches a heavily scarred guy in a suit. I don't know if we've ever actually seen him before, but I don't think so.
I don't think, but I could be wrong.
And the guy congratulates Wheeler on a job well done, and that's where we end the chapter.
Yeah, I don't know what I can really say. I guess Winston Wheeler seems kind of cool, but it's tough to really say too much about this because this is all kind of set up for things. I'll be curious to see where things go from here, I guess.
Yeah, there's no jokes in this chapter.
Yeah, there's no silliness. This is straight spy.
So yeah, here we go. We'll see how long this not very amusing stretch lasts, I guess.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's talk about some Eden Zero, Nick. Of course, we have to pull out our phones for this. However, we may not need to, Nick. They have a new web client for K-Manga, and you can even get a subscription for it. Now, the subscription isn't like to read all the manga. It's just to buy K-points at a regular interval. So it's the same thing. But if you do want to read through the website, you can. However, I don't think it links to the phone per se. I don't know if it links to the mobile version exactly.
Just separate accounts that you have to.
I think I'm not 100% certain. I haven't tried it yet. I'll honestly probably just keep using my phone because it's like an extra level of all this stuff to have to like handle. Anyways, this is Eden Zero, Chapter 241, Flight of the Valkyrie. Valkyrie is on the cover page. She wore pants that go halfway up her butt.
I don't know how they're supposed to stay on.
I assume they're not supposed to. I think in the Discord I likened this to the Skull Greymon evolution of like that 90s trend of thong pants.
Right.
Like this is just a slightly more evil and uncomfortable version of that. It's okay, Nick. She gets to look very cool in this chapter. So, of course, we open with everyone's favorite foot fetish, Zhao Mei, who says, I'm so glad to see everybody. I'm back to explain the plot. This was my favorite thing of the new universe, is like there was very little Zhao Mei, but we're jumping forward so quickly. They were like, you need a little Zhao Mei to understand what's happening. Weirdly, I don't think we need this recap. We caught up, I guess, in so much.
This is just the last chapter, basically.
Yeah, I was like, this really isn't capturing like a whole bunch of information. It's just telling us.
And also, she skips over the point of like how supposedly confusing the Xenolith inside something else's body is, because like actually it's not complicated at all. He's just inside this little guy. And that's just it. He's
just inside this little man now. But we do know that Shiki and Shora are headed towards Poseidon 1. However, first, we cut over to Clean, who's looking out the window, sister comes up like, hey, how are you doing? Like, I know you never met Mueller in this world, but in the last one, and Jin's like, no, don't remind her. But she interrupts. She's like, no, I'm fine, sister, thanks to you, because you magically undid my trauma. It doesn't exist anymore. I'm okay now. But Jin is like, no, I'm not.
I'm not okay.
I'm not fine. I never got the chance to beat the shit out of this guy in the last world. We cut over to Laguna, who's walking around, who I guess regained his memories. I don't remember if there was like a scene for that, but he's walking around like he knows everything, so I guess he's remembered the other universe. When he runs into Witch, and this entire page is very weird. We see like
it's so strange.
We see like a shot of Witch, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but the art doesn't look right. Like someone had to say it was Witch before. I was like, oh yeah, I know she doesn't have her little mask on, but like beyond that, it's the art's a little weird.
Her face is wider than it usually is, I think.
Yeah, there was a little extra space given for her bangs. Then we cut to just the top left corner of Weiss's face that says, oh yeah, we haven't told you yet, she's alive in this world. I don't know why you would frame a shot like that. You could literally do anything, but it's like Weiss's face. And then Hermit, with a little shit-eating grin, is like, Valkyrie's alive too, in case you cared. And I'm like, I guess this is meant to be comedic, but it's just kind of mean. Like
there is no connection between Laguna and Valkyrie.
There is.
So it's really weird that there's calling this attention to as like, yeah, Valkyrie too, in case you cared. And it's like Laguna has not reacted to Witch's presence yet until after this moment. Like so there's an emotional reaction that happens after this. And if he had the reaction and it was like, oh, I'm so glad to see you again, and then Hermit shows up and like, yeah, and Valkyrie's alive too, in case you cared, then it would at least be like, oh, you're having this reaction over someone in our crew being dead, but not this other person who was dead in the other universe. It still would have been weird because, again, Laguna has no connection to her.
He has no reason to really know who this person is. It's sort of like you date someone and you found out like, oh, their dad died like 7 years ago. You're just like, I understand this is a significant thing for you, but like I don't have any personal, I don't know. It just felt shitty and mean. Anyway, Laguna's very happy. Happy makes a remark. Now the gang's all here. And then Pino's like, actually, we haven't found Couch Po, Labilia, or Connor. And Wise is like, well, we actually probably need Connor, but I don't think we actually need the other two. In fact, it might be kind of cruel to add them to the ship because
guys,
they weren't really like combatants or anything.
Couch Po is the stomach of the Eden Zero. Come on.
We're going to get to that, any day. Rebecca laments, like, originally the plan was to go to the Yukino Cosmos to find instructions on how to find Mother, but they note, like, well, we're not going to abandon Xenolith in this thing. Eggbot little girl has come along. She's now okay with Xenolith and the Eggbot body.
Yeah, they just got done talking about, like, we shouldn't pick up Labilia and Couch Po. There would no point to it. It's like, anyway, let's take this tiny child with us.
They do note that, like, she didn't want to leave them, but which is also, like, we're about to go into war. Maybe we shouldn't have brought the young child along just because she was going to miss her friend. Shura contacts them, just like, hey.
She also holds Xenolith Eggbot in a really weird way by, like, not gripping him with her hands, but by just kind of, like, holding her elbows in front of herself to squeeze.
She's doing some exercise. She's trying to get some reps in. She's trying to bring that Eggbot.
When I become an adult hero female character, this will be a really good pose for me to practice.
Yeah, the muscle mommy fetishists will go wild for this. It'll be a cover page. Sure, contacts like, hey, you guys stay out of this. We're gonna handle all this. But boom, suddenly the radar lights up. The entire Imperial fleet is coming at them and is targeting them with their lasers like shit. Or even like Prince Shura's vessel, like, oh, they must be controlled by AI. Like, this is really bad. Evasive maneuvers, but they don't have time. However, boom, Eden Zero flies in front, activates their shield, protects everybody. Works out great for everybody. Shiki's like, hey, we've got you covered. Everybody in battle positions. And the standout from all of this is Valkyrie, the Sword of Eden, is ready to fight. Now, Nick, in the previous universe, Homura was the Swords of Eden. And when they fought, they got into like a big mech suit. Valkyrie doesn't need that. She just fucking jumps straight into space, and she's like, shoosh, and just slashes up a whole bunch of things. It's probably cool if you like Valkyrie. That's all I really have to say about that.
No, Quinn. There was a moment missing where she could have transformed into a weird fetishy suit of armor in order to do this.
I
But
mean, she
she didn't,
did.
so.
She
No,
transformed.
I mean,
into...
no, a different fetishy suit of armor.
Yeah, a leotard with a giant open breast window isn't fetishy enough. She could have dressed like a cat girl.
She could have transformed into one, slashed a bunch of things, and then transformed into another suit of armor. And then people could have said, well, that's Valkyrie. And that's...
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? The end of there also is a moment with the member of Oceans being like, oh, wow, they beat us up and they weren't even trying. These guys are so cool. And I guess Ocean sucks in this world. Anyway, we end the chapter by cutting back over to the temple where Dr. Mueller is giggling with glee to himself as he has found the 20,000 Imperial antimatter bombs. And if he uses his gravity powers, he can use them to travel through time. Bum, 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 bum.
I think that I'm actually getting to the moment where I'm actively resentful of Eden Zero and how it's been doing things in this new universe. I think that the chapter starts off actually kind of okay in terms of some of the stuff that gets covered. I'm glad that we got past the point of the girl just being like upset at Xenolith, taking over the Eggbot's body. That's just no longer a thing. I think that it's nice that there was an emotional, reaction of some kind from Laguna at the prospect of being reunited with somebody from the crew at all, because he was just kind of being a blank-faced prick up to this point. But honestly, I actually am just kind of angry that we have Homura but better doing stuff, and Homura thus doesn't do anything. Like, that's just, like Homura was like trying to live up to her master and fill her, the void that she had left in her death by, becoming that part of the crew, and she had all this stuff, and it's like, yeah, and Valkyrie's just alive now, so what do we need Homura to do stuff for? As someone who was kind of connected to that story, the fact that the story's been thrown away, and now she also doesn't have anything else going on except a really bad romance that is not romantic at all. It actively pisses me off at this point. So I don't like this, and I want this to stop.
I would like to get off this ride. Yeah, I mean, it's not good. I won't say this is like the worst chapter or anything like that. It's just like one where you're like, okay, Homura kind of is weirdly replaceable. I guess we're setting up Jin to maybe do something, which is cool because Jin has done like exclusively nothing throughout this fucking series. But we're gonna set up that like maybe he'll let his anger get like the better of him here or something like that. But otherwise, it's it's kind of paint by numbers.
Yeah. But now we'll move back into the pages of Jump. We're gonna talk more about Akane-banashi. So last time we saw the first contestant, the fourth guy in the competition,
Hey,
Zenmai.
The fourth guy gets on the cover page this week.
He is. It's a kung fu kind of style thing with all of the different contestants doing martial arts poses. It's neat. So it's story 63, the worst compatibility. Zenmai was the first person to go out there and do his thing, and he only got a 75 total out of 100 as a result of this weird judging panel where all the judges have different criteria that they're focusing on. Including, online and live audiences. And so he feels really bad. He's like, it's not bad, but I guess it's not, but it's not good either. And he's just really stressing out about it. I kind of comes by and is like, here, have some tea. And he's like, what, you pitying me? You saw that pathetic excuse of a performance? And he's like, no, it was really good. It was a really good rendition. And Zenmai's like, no. He just immediately stops being angry about it. He's crying and taking the tea and stuff. But Akane then is like in analysis mode, and she thinks that the problem is the judges, because of the way that the scores were all varied. I'm guessing that they're all looking for completely different things, just establishing that she is in on the thing that we had our journalism team focusing on last time. And so Akane thinks about this. And again, she and the journalist kind of realize, like, Kaichi probably has the worst compatibility for this type of test, because the thing that got him through the first round was just really playing into the audience reaction, the volume of the laughter that he got. But if he reaches too hard for it, then that journalist guy who was really harsh on him is going to hate it, and that's going to sink his score as a result. But the problem is that doesn't guarantee he's going to lose, because, as is pointed out, Kaichi was a top-notch salesman, a man used to making numbers go up with his gift for gab. And so Kaichi starts launching into a story after he takes the stage, and he says there is a recurring character in a lot of Rakugo stories named Yotaro, who is kind of a dunce. And he just launches into this story, which is Golden Bamboo. Yotaro works for his uncle's antiques shop and finds himself getting into trouble in humorous ways in this Zenza-banashi. So, he just starts going into it, and he's like, Yotaro, why are you clipping the cat's claws? I'm just doing what you told me to, uncle. You've got to keep your nails trimmed. No, not you. You, not the cat. Oh, ha, ha, ha. And so it starts off with like, okay, yeah, the journalist is like, this is a good choice, because this is a great, very highly polished story. You don't need to add your own wrinkles and stuff. They're the funniest if you just stick to them as they are done traditionally. Stick to the fundamentals. Stay true to the roots. And Zenmai is under the impression is like, oh yeah, he's just gonna like play it safe for this. But Akane realizes like, no, that's not what's happening. He's feeling the room. He's just trying stuff out and seeing what gets a good reaction. And so he goes into the next joke, which is Yotaro's uncle is like, oh, take this bucket and clean out front. And Yotaro says, starts like waving around like, okay. It's like, no, you're gonna spill it. I said spread the water about, just swing back and forth like this. And he starts like shaking his head back and forth. Oh, swing back and forth. Like, no, that's not what I mean. And then Yotaro says, oh, you mean like this? And he starts dancing. Which I legit made me laugh when I got to that point, just because of the faces that he's pulling while doing it. And everyone suddenly realized, like, wait a minute, that part isn't in Golden Bamboo. And then Kaichi starts improving more and more and getting more and more outside the bounds of the way the story is normally performed. And there's this realization, like, not only is he not scared and playing it safe because of the way that the last guy was scored, he's going even further. He's throwing in every single possible extra wrinkle that he possibly can. He's reading the room. He's adding more jokes if the crowd is receptive. That's something you would do at an ordinary show, but this is a competition. He's being judged. And Zenmai realized, like, I mean, if you lean this hard into it, that judge has got to think, and out loud, the journalist judge goes, this is stupid. Immediately.
He became us sometimes. We're just like reading something. We're like, this is dumb. I hate this.
And Kaichi, with this big triumphant grin on his face, thinks to himself, I'm fine with that. I don't care about what he thinks about my performance. All I'm going for is the smiles of the customer. If everyone else is happy, then I'm happy too. It has to be that way, because if I lose sight of the smiles to focus on the numbers, then what was the point of quitting sales in the first place? And we start to get a little bit of a flashback to when Kaichi was, he was working in sales and marketing, just a guy in a suit working in an office, had this big trophy for being number one in yearly sales, and not looking too happy about it, and looking at a little brochure advertising Isho Arakawa.
It's a fucking awesome chapter. Kaichi is so cool. It's such a funny chapter. I love seeing his personality. The art is so varied and expressive. I love like the two panels back to back give us like 12 different expressions of Kaichi that are all like very different from each other, and like it's just really, really cool. And I love like just Glass Dude being like, I hate this is dumb.
I don't like this, and I don't care.
Fuck you.
Yeah, a fun chapter, and I really did like I feel like I'm going to enjoy like, okay, you know, how is each person going to tackle this big task and make them feel very different from each other. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Oh, Quinn, it's Blue Box. Character popularity poll results. There were close to 150,000 votes for characters, and Chinatsu got over half of them. So
It is wild. Every single person added up didn't equal how much fucking Shinatsu got. It's Jesus.
Chinatsu is just further from Hina as Hina is from the next person below that. So it's like Chinatsu 74,000, Hina 33,000, Taiki 6,000.
Yeah, it was a real fight for third through fifth place. That was where there was a competition a little bit.
Yeah. So and Ayame got fifth place. Somehow Kyo got fourth.
Yeah,
I guess.
Come on, Kyo.
Yeah. Just a very, very, very emphatic first place there. It's chapter 102 of Blue Box. It's so beautiful. And it's the morning of January 4th, which means that Taiki is going out and doing the ski trip with his teammates, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna go up to Shigakogen and Nagano, sorry." And Taiki thinks to himself like, "Chinatsu Senpai is in Nagano right now. I mean, we're gonna be 2 hours away from each other by train. It's not like we'll run into each other. So, not like I looked it up to realize that or anything."
Yeah, it's like I've been factoring this in every moment of my day. And I will say, never mind, carry on.
Okay. We go over to Chinatsu's family's place, and then she's, you know, like cozied up onto the kotatsu, and you know, she says like, I'm trying to, you know, like get up early so that I can shake off being, you know, lazy around the new year, especially because of course, you know, like she's going to be going to practice and everything like that. They established what the timetable is for them heading back, and you know, her mother says like, yeah, just take it easy until then. And she's like, yeah, okay. And then her grandfather comes in and is like, hey, want to go smelt fishing with me today? Because the lake's frozen, or we can fish for him there. Remember when we did that when you were little? Yeah. So Shinatsu's like, yeah, okay. And so she's going to go out fishing with her grandpa. And then we cut back over to Taiki's group on their trip. And Taiki looks up as they're, you know, like going down the road in a bus, and they are entering into Nagano. And he's like, if we were to turn off here, we would be heading for her grandpa's place. And no, I gotta be patient. Just gotta be patient. Nishida is finally useful. He gives them snacks. Good job.
No, I don't get. No, fuck this guy. I'm not giving him an edge.
No. They're probably the bad kind of chips.
He's gonna drop, like, he's gonna be like, "Oh, those snacks are making me poop. We all have to go to the bathroom together."
Chinatsu's family arrives at the lake, and it's utterly covered in ice. We get this big 2-page spread of just this, you know, frozen over lake. It's very pretty. Chinatsu is like kind of like hypnotized by it, and she steps out onto the lake. Then meanwhile, Taiki's team arrives at the place where they're going to start skiing and stuff. And Taiki just kind of is looking around as everyone's kind of like, there's a very awful thing that Haruyu says, which is because Bishi like belly flops onto the snow. He's like, there could be a stake where you just belly flopped. He's like, Taiki's like, that's a horrible thing to say when it's so beautiful. And he's like, oh, take a picture of this cool mountainside. And he's like, oh, I'm going to let Chinatsu know that I'm kind of in the area. No, I shouldn't do that. I'll just, you know, it'll be kind of weird to, I'll just talk to her at the time we agree to when she gets back. And then he gets a photo from Chinatsu, who couldn't resist sharing the beautiful sight of the lake with Taiki. And since it's just a picture, it's like, yeah, I'm at this place called Lake Konami to go smelt fishing. And Taiki thinks for a second as he starts to blush. And he falls behind his group. And he's like, I want to take a quick detour if it's okay. And they're like, all right. And Kyo offers to take his bags. Good old Kyo.
Yeah.
And so they're like, all right, just be careful. And he heads off, runs off, and he's just running. We end on this big 2-page spread of Taiki running to see if he can find Shinatsu. Like, come on. Right?
What I wanted to say, and I'll say it now. For all the hate I give Nishima, or whatever his name is, bald-headed jerk dude who cock blocks every scene, Kyo was a real one right there.
He was.
They were like, no, we gotta go together. And he's like, nah, I'll take your bags. Don't worry about it. He was a cool dude right there, and I like that. He's a real one. And you know what? I think it's okay for him to be fourth. Well, he should be fifth place. Let's be honest. Ayame is a lot cooler. But still, yeah, he should. I understand why he got votes.
Yeah. So, hey, we might get unexpected early meeting between the two of them. Maybe. We'll see. Guys, but let's move on to Cipher Academy now. It's chapter 25 of that one. The road to war trophies also starts with a single step.
I have that motivational poster on my wall.
Good to know.
And I also call myself the Code Emperor sometimes.
Code Emperor. Yeah, there's a kind of a weird shot of some of the members of Iroha's class all with like signs that are, I guess, stating their position, but like their future positions, I guess, or like goals to aim for. I don't know. It's a little bit weird.
Yeah, I was confused. I guess this is like kind of like where they'll eventually get to. It's really confusing because Iroha is specifically the class leading private.
Right.
That's given to Goggles Girl.
Right.
So I'm assuming these are ambitions or like where they're likely to end up or something. I don't know.
I'm not sure exactly what the implication is supposed to be. Iroha has gone to meet up with the other class-leading privates. He's got a glasses weapon on. Possibly the stupidest looking one yet. This
is Oboyo's one, isn't it?
Oboro's, yes. Yeah. The color analyzing ones. So he's shown up to a meeting with the other leading privates, by a cherry blossom garden. And so the hat one, Kubinashi, is like, oh, there you are. Those glasses look good on you. Meanwhile, of course, Kogoe and Toshusai are kind of using them to listen in on everything. And they're like, all right, well, what's going on here? Toshusai specifically says when Kogoe asks, like, didn't you want to like go there too? And she's like, nah, I've got people I don't want to run into. Shut up. And she says, look, it'll be okay. He'll need to be able to withstand face-to-face, I mean butt-to-butt meetings like these. Like, that was a really forced one. I'm sorry.
I so enjoy it because she realized, she's like, we could never do face-to-face. Fuck, I have one way at 2 for the day. Butt-to-butt meetings like this.
But she also says, like, they've got a matchmaker.
Uh-oh. I think we may have lost Nick for a second there.
And see, Junko Ikusu comes up, and she's got a bottle that is labeled CH3OH. And immediately, Iroha's like, methanol? Don't you go blind if you drink that? And Junko, to be clear, is staggering around like she is drunk. But she's like, there's just water inside. It's just a naughty bottle.
I love that she just walks through. She's like, I just need a silly little gimmick. And I got it.
Yep.
You're like, okay, cool. So, everyone needs their hobbies, I guess.
So the other privates start talking about stuff. One of them says, like, okay, each of the leaders here has one of the 6 passwords needed for the update for the pickaxe glasses weapon meant to excavate the 50 billion morgue slumbering within Cipher Academy. And look, we're not going to, like, share stuff with each other. It's going to be, winner takes all. Let's just, establish that we're going to do that. We're going to do a battle. And I move that we enact a class versus class code battle. And the teacher's like, okay. By the way, The Academy will never acknowledge the existence of those crypto assets, so let's make this an official code battle meant to decide the leader of the class leaders, the grade-wide leader. And since there aren't any second or third years, the grade-wide leader is basically the Academy General. So there's no other years in this school, I guess.
Well, I guess it's a new school, so they've
Must be.
only gotten a first year of students, basically.
Or the other two classes died horribly.
That also could be true.
So essentially they're like, yeah, I mean, if you win this, then you might as well just call yourself Code Emperor, basically. So, yeah. So Junko puts down her bottle and says like, okay, so I'll consider all this stuff, and we get like big proper introductions to the other 5 leading privates. And as it turns out, each of the classes has like a specialty of some kind, some of which are like, okay, one of them is for information scrambling. All right, the other end of like code breaking stuff. That makes sense. One of them is undercover operations.
Yeah.
One of them is the special mission class, which seems way too vague.
Yeah.
One of them is the dying message decoding class, which I don't know why that's a specialty.
I was going to say, what a sad specialty. Like, we only get dying messages from people.
And Invalides Yonakyu Guisu is the leader of the telepathy class. Excuse me?
The fucking, yeah, Nick, it's all your favorite food groups. Information scrambling, undercover operation, special mission, dying message, and Jinzo. Like, they're all there.
So each of them are all saying stuff, and they're like, oh, okay, well, I don't want this to be a round-robin tournament. One of them says, like, physical competition and violence should be against the rules. And one of them's like, yeah, we should, forbid all use of glasses weapons. And Iroha's like, oh, they're all just quickly moving along without giving me a chance to say anything. Iroha, one of the girls said, no comment when it was her turn to talk. Calm down. It's okay. But he makes a proposal, which is like, hey, no matter which class wins, no matter once the battle is over, let's all eat Baumkuchen here together. Because then, it doesn't matter what kind of codes or battles get thrown at us, it'll all be elementary to Class 1A. And everyone just kind of like stares at him.
Like, fucking, alright, Doc.
So, Kagome brings up like, him throwing in that proposal. Don't you think that he's been like a bit too influenced by Yuasai Mura, who was the one who proposed that they do that on their day off? And Toshisai says, well, Iroha Zaga's been influenced by everyone. Since he's our class rep, we need him to be influenced by everyone. She also brings up, like, there is at least one person present who is impervious to that kind of spirit, but doesn't really go into further detail from there. But, one of these ruthless codebreaker girls doesn't want to get along with everyone.
Nick, I'm gonna go on a
Shocking.
wild limb. I'm gonna say by the end of their interactions with Iroha, they're gonna go along with it.
Yes, and it will honestly probably be great. So so Junko's then like, all right, let's decide the match for the next battle. And she puts down a fucking maze, like, like this kind that you give to, that you put in like, like a puzzle book. It's like, hey, find the exit to the maze kind of thing. Except it's got 8 entry points. And it's like, yeah, so each of you choose one of these, and the person that your route leads to is the one you'll be matched up against. That's how you'll find your fated partner. Also, there are 2 dead ends here. So if you choose one of those, you just lose the competition immediately. You will just be disqualified from this. So Iroha Hazaka says like, oh, he's kind of like, Toshisai says of Iroha Hazaka, like, he's always kind of like stumbled early to start with. Maybe that's his weak point, is that he's not a strong starter. So Kagome is just like, well, that's okay. We're here to make up for his shortcomings. Let me just remotely activate Oboros' glasses. And she does this, and as a result, Iroha is made to see that the maze spells out MRG, which he concludes like, what? But she said that they weren't going to acknowledge the existence of the morgue, because that's the only thing that MRG could possibly reference at all. one of the other class leading projects then like, hey, class president guy, weren't you listening? You
Oh,
Toshi-san like could go like analyze this, and then Iroha just kind of like takes the glasses off and looks at her and is like, "What are you talking about? You forbade the use of them during battles, but this is a pre-battle, so I can do whatever the fuck I want." And just is doing a full Yugata impression while doing this. And it's like, all right, well, okay.
fair enough. Go off, King.
And as a result of this, he is matched up with Kubinashi after choosing his starting point. So Toshisai and Kogoe have a little bit of a peanut gallery analysis of this. Kogoe says, I don't think this is really a happy result because something happened between Class E's leader and Omamura, right? So does that mean she's the person you don't want to run into, Toshisai? And Toshisai's like, that would be Rikyu Kiiku-san from Class B. She's the type of person I can't stand. This person is a different matter. The four of us don't even want to see her face. But yeah, it's going to be Class A versus Class C, which makes sense. Class C is the one that Iroha has had any form of connection to in the build-up to this. I'm sure that probably Class C will be another one that will be a big deal because of the way that Invalides made her presence known. But we'll see how this goes. Hey, more students are going to get introduced with their own gimmicks and stuff.
What's very interesting to me is we got like a slight tease of the Class B leader, but they're facing a little psychic girl who I feel like is the only other character with any kind of the telepathy class girl. So I feel like I'm like, they can't get rid of Invalidate Yusanagi or whatever her name is. So I don't know, it's interesting. I think this was generally a good time. There's some setup for some stuff. Oh, it's a little silly.
Yeah.
Nick!
Yo!
Let's talk about something new, Nick.
You mean a new Exorcist?
Let's talk about new Exorcist, Chapter 3.
Chapter
now, Nick,
3!
Of course, the Exorcist line said in jest, this series as chaste as they've come. I said as much last week when I was like, well, this series may seem to be about sex, but it's not just shoving boobs and butts into our faces the whole time.
Absolutely.
And I haven't finished this chapter, but I will be slowly sipping water, validating my opinion as we go through.
It's Chapter 3, Forgetting Beam. So, hey, our Yoshida, that's his name, is going about his day. And
you don't need to remember his name.
No, I said that I should help out people who are possessed by spirits, but I called out to someone who's possessed by a spirit yesterday, and she looked disgusted at me, so I didn't do anything, and now she's dead, like my dad!
He doesn't say that she's dead, but it would be wild if he was just like, I saw someone who needed help, and I got scared, so I didn't help her, and she's dead. Anyways...
I guess you should keep trying, because this person's also possessed by spirits. Excuse me! Are you okay? Are you alright? Do you not feel good because there's a spirit haunting you and that makes you feel bad? Are you okay? And the girl that he's called out to is like, I'm fine. Wait, can you see this thing? So he's like, oh yes, let me get rid of it. And he gets rid of it. Off panel.
Yeah,
he's like,
I assume just waves his hand. He's like, get out of here!
No, go away!
Get out of here! Gross.
So the girl's like, wow, you got rid of it. Cool. And he's like, yeah. Goodbye. No. Hold on. You're a first year at my school, right? Yeah, you helped me out, so let's get lunch together. It'll be my treat. Okay? Bye. And Nue has witnessed this somehow, and she's like, Gakuro, it's here, the flowing start of your youth. And he's like, no, that's not what's happening. And Nue says, like, oh, come on, I'm going to just consider every word that comes out of your mouth a sense of giddiness. So come on, go date her and stuff, whatever it is you mortals do and all that. But she's like, oh no, she was just really nice. I can't assume that. It's like, no, it sounds like you're already interested in her. How do you glean that? I don't understand how you how you think that he's interested in her. He's just like, no, I'm not worthy of hanging out with her. And then he says something very depressing, which is, if I were a girl, I would never consider me. Ooh.
I was like, holy shit, this is fucking humiliating to listen to. Like, I think Ninja said this in our Discord. He's like, you can't make a character who thinks he sucks and then the audience agrees with him. Like, this is a bad plan. Because I was like, yeah, I don't know anyone who would want to date this kid either. He sucks so much.
And then Nue is just has to say, like, all right, I won't raise the issue anymore. God, you're sad.
It's like, holy shit, get your shit together, dog.
But she also says, like, hey, I think that you're the kind of person who gets stronger when you have things to protect. Later in the day, hey.
He's like, I didn't when my dad was being killed.
Yoshida goes to the cafeteria for lunch. The girl shows up, like, just who are you waiting for? Your girlfriend?
He's like, I get stronger unless they're kind of mean to me or give me a weird vibe, in which case I check it out and leave them to their fate.
That's what happened to my dad. He was like, he was looking at me with desperation, but he also kind of had that I'm disapproving of you look about him, which my dad often looked at me with.
He also beat me at Mario Kart earlier today and said I was a scrub. I'm not a scrub, but a scrub definitely would not help his dad when they were dying, so I guess I am a scrub. Can you hold me? Yeah.
So yeah, she's just like really friendly, like, hey, well, gonna get some food. Yeah, hey, let's have some ramen. And they start eating together, and she is like, oh, I could do this. I need to finish eating around the same time she does.
Yeah, my dog, you're thinking way too much about this. Your mind, it's so in your head.
He's just like, after this, I'll just thank her for eating with me, and that's it. That's all I'll do is I'll say, thank you, senpai, and that'll be it. And then as they're finishing, she just says, hey, would you like to start in a cult club together? He's like, what? What's happening? She wants to continue associating with me?
He really does. He's sort of like, she would like to continue being in part of my life. Ah!
Oh! She's like, hey, I like occult things, so you can see them too, so let's do it. No! There's nothing good in this for you, no! But then he says out loud, yeah, okay. What did I do? And the girl's really excited, like, yeah, oh, you seem really shy, so I thought I would have to, like, really talk you into it. And he's like, no, I am shy. Why did I say those things? That wasn't me talking. No, I took control of my body and forced me to say that. Or didn't actually do that. She just... She did a magic trick, and she spoke with his voice, and she communicates with him psychically and says, Gakuro, if we start a cult club, that'll be good for us. And also, like, come on, like, make a friend, please.
Yeah, it's like mainly just like, we should find we could create a place to help people who are being, like, troubled by spirits. He's like, but what if they give me a look that says, ew, I might just leave them to their fate.
And so the girl starts to go, and it's like, yeah, I'll come and pick you up at your classroom and stuff. And Nue is like, yeah, she's a nice girl, Gakuro. This will be great. And he's like, oh, all right, but if we're just doing this for Nue's goal, I guess it's okay, because then I won't be shaming her by being her friend. I should just stay focused on the job. And for seemingly no reason,
truly, there is no reason this happens. Like, she's already turned. They're in a room. There's no wind. There is no reason why this happens.
Her skirt blows up, and he gets a nice clear look at her butt. And he gets embarrassed. She handles this incredibly professionally. Like, because she literally is just like, oh, flatten that down, sense it happened, looks over her shoulder, sees that Yoshida definitely saw that, and she just points at him and kind of goes, forgetting me. Just forget you saw that. Just, yeah.
It is why I don't know why this took me so off guard. I've been reading manga for a very long time. I'm certainly not a stranger for seeing this, but in my mind I was like, oh, like, I haven't seen this in a series that isn't like Ayakashi Triangle or something that's like deliberately ecchi. Like, I was just like, I've never just seen the like wonton upskirt underwear shot in so long. It like took me off guard. I was like, you still do those? Okay.
I understand what you mean. Like when it's far more blatant and commonplace, and like there are situations where it's just forced in a lot of the etchy stuff that we have read on this show. Yeah, compared to that, it's just much more off-putting. It's like, oh, where'd that come from?
I also got confused. I thought she literally shot a beam through him.
Because he reacts like she saw a beam through him, and it's labeled the forgetting beam. And
but
so
it goes
like,
through his chest, not even his
Yeah.
head, where his brain and thus memories would theoretically be. I was just like, what?
So it's like, oh, does she have powers, or is like, no, that's just his reaction to her being really cool and playful, and that's.
But she does have powers. Don't worry,
She does have powers.
She does have powers. This is not them, I guess.
So after class, I'm just gonna call him Gakuro because that's what he gets called all the time. He's going with the girl, and she's like, "Yeah, so there's a lot of empty classrooms that around this school, so we'll just kind of use like a hard to find one for our club room, and we can't turn in a club application with just the two of us." She's very clearly like thought these little details through for starting up a club, and Gakuro's like, "Oh, I never thought things would come to this." Well, I'll take on whatever comes our way. So where's this confidence coming from, dude? Where did this come from? But she looks at him and just kind of leans over. And is like, "Hey, are you kind of nervous?" "Yeah, me too. Let's go check things out over there." Just like she's just like so nice and so observant, and it's just like. Just so friendly, just says all the right things to set someone at ease. Just like, hey, it's okay. I'm kind of nervous too. It's fine, you know.
Yeah.
And Gakuro's like, oh, I'm so embarrassing. That's the one. That's sort of the vibe I was expecting. Yes. So she says like, hey, thanks for like approaching me. I can see these spirits too, but that's not something that anyone has the courage to do to approach me like that. You definitely know this too, that the one possessing me this morning was one of those really annoying types. Driving them away isn't hard, but then your left arm hella hurts afterwards, so it's some kind of curse or something. And you knew that, and yet you still helped me. And she takes his wrist, which is like bruised up because he fell prey to like the parting curse of this spirit. And she's like, yeah, you like act like you were used to it. So I don't like how you're acting as if it's crazy that I invited you to join. I think that you're an awesome guy, so don't think too little or too high of yourself. And Gakuro doesn't really get a chance to say anything in response to this very shocking thing for him, because she opens up a door to a room and is like, oh, here we go. Spirits come pouring out everywhere and start to surround her. And immediately Gakuro has to jump in. He unleashes his power to like start attacking stuff. And he's like, Senpai, I was really happy when you invited me. Let's make it a cult club and be weirdos in the club together.
What's with his fucking face there? He's like, I was really happy that you asked me to hang out with you.
Oh, God. And she's like, yeah, let's go find a good club room. And she's like, yeah, I know. What do you think we're doing? And the spikes suddenly burst up around the spirit as boots appear on the girl's legs. And she says, yeah, this classroom's really nice now that it's free of spirits. Oh, do you know about exorcists? They only exist in this town. And Gakuro remembers the advice that Nua gave to him, which is like, yeah, the exorcists are the town's security force and stuff. If you happen to meet a good one, you should befriend them. And the girl introduces herself as Kazusa Suo. And Suo says, I work as an exorcist. And it's like, yeah, I mean, okay, makes sense. Okay, so... Gakuro sucks.
Yes.
Quinn, it's chapter 3.
Mm-hmm.
The series is not good.
No, it's not.
I kind of want to read it anyway.
Yes. 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 Yes.
This is such a consumable, not tiring piece of garbage series. Like, I feel like I could easily read through this and we could just have an easy time making fun of it. Like, this is Bone Collection on easy mode for me.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've had fun even in this chapter where there's not much going on. I'm still able to just pick out jokes because the protagonist is so unlikable that it's really easy just to like get on board with how dumb and goofy this series is. It's now started to like, for some reason, it's like just a little horny, just a little bit. The art is still a little bit on the rough edge. It just seems like it's gonna be fun. I don't know. I had so much fun in the last two chapters. Maybe I'm just riding that momentum.
What's going to be really weird is when people see Suo hang out with Gakuro, and he has to be like, "Oh, she's my sister, who's not related by blood."
He just says that to every girl he's with. He's like, this is the lady at the coffee shop I go to. She's my sister, but we're not related by blood."
Oh God. All right, let's move on to Tenmaku Cinema, Chapter 7.
This?
The Director's Job, Chapter 7. Yeah, so after all the location scouting that Hajime and Kurai did last time, it's the whole team is heading out this time. And we get a little bit of a flashback just to remind us of like, hey, when Hajime was young, he was sick all the time. And that was why movies meant so much to him. Just like a little bit of a reminder there, which legitimately, I had forgotten that detail about him because it had not really been brought up since like the first chapter. Tenmaku, of course, is floating along too. And we established that Tenmaku did not get a lot of sleep because Hajime kept on waking him up to ask for more advice about if he had prepped enough for the shoot. So it's a reversal of when he kept on waking up Hajime in order to play more movies and stuff. We get more into, the details of like, when Hajime was young, he would just, he would just do some, he would just watch movies to have something to do. It was the only real like outside connection he had and something that he wanted to be a part of. And he's like, this is happening. For the first time, I'm shooting a movie. And it's just nice to have that extra meaning added in there of like, hey, this is, just a dopey little student film, basically, that they're going to be making, but it means a lot to him. It's nice. And, he's kind of like letting himself soak in the moment until his friends call him over and stuff. So they're, we get to a point where they're like doing some rehearsals and stuff. And they ask like, oh, wait, who's going to play the other roles? Tenmaku asks him this. And Hajime's like, yeah, the guys are going to do that while they're also doubling as staff. So like we're going to have, Akitsu, he's probably the best suited to like handle audio production because he's in a band. Makes sense. And he's like commenting on stuff while he's talking over things with Kurai, like, yeah, I can kind of clean up some of the noise later. We might need like a lapel mic and all this stuff. And she's just like, what are all these terms that you're using? Which, yeah, if you're not familiar with it, then I imagine a high school student would be like, what is this black magic of audio editing?
Yeah, what do you mean about? The noise? The talking? No, we need that.
Yeah. The undercut kid, Ryoji, is going to be their grip because
he's Kirito Prime.
He's a
he puts together Gundam little toys, and he's like, I work on cars. I'm a triple threat.
And he's a handyman. He's a handy guy. So he's like, yeah, I can build anything. And as for actually like prepping on the actor's appearance, that's going to be the third guy, bowl cut kid, Shino, who has two older sisters who are big into like makeup and fashion and stuff, and he would always kind of like do makeup with them when he was a kid, so he's got a lot of hands-on experience doing that kind of thing. It's like, all right, fair enough. So hey, the other kids have jobs, and I'll be able to distinguish them from one another in that regard at least.
Yeah, handyman guy, volume guy, makeup guy.
Volume guy.
Yeah, volume guy was probably the worst way I could describe that character, but there he is.
So they're also talking over certain stuff. Hajime's like, hey, so we need to get at least this much done because Kurai's going to be even busier once we get to summer vacation. So Ryoji's like, oh, so we're going to go to the beach now on a weekday? And then they're talking about like, oh, what are we going to do? And Hajime says like, look, we don't have the time or the budget to go back and forth between the school where we're shooting stuff and the beach. So we have to make it look like this school is by the ocean. You know, we'll use a lot of camera tricks and stuff, and we'll add in sound effects during certain scenes to make it look this way. In the live action version of The Promised Neverland,
it's very amusing. I was like, oh, right. Other people still have a fond nostalgia for this series.
That anime tried to kill it, by the way, that second season, but I don't know anything about the live action version, but they said it was like the live action version, the interior and exterior of the Gracefield house are different buildings, which is very common, of course. So yeah, what we'll do is we'll do all this stuff, and they'll just kind of like make the audience make the connection to like, oh, the school is by the ocean. Then Karai kind of like calls Hajime attention over and is like, hey, I'm ready to begin. So Hajime calls the crew together, and he just says like, hey, look, we've only got about 2 months until the deadline for this contest. This is the first day that we're shooting, so thanks for doing this. And then the guys all get like, yeah, and he's like, okay, here we go, action. And we established that like everyone's like very well equipped for this stuff. They've got multiple cameras that are going between like, you know, essentially everyone who's not involved in acting in a scene are going to have multiple angles for stuff. And as a result of doing this, they'll have more angles to work with, more footage to work with, just so that they have as much as possible to do. Also, they've scouted stuff out in order to make sure that no students will come into the shooting while they're doing stuff, because they're just doing it in the school. And there's, you know, a quick moment where they like, you know, they shoot, you know, Karai delivering a line, and then they're like, okay, let me try this, and they like immediately put the what they recorded on a tablet, and Hajime is immediately like, oh, my camera work is garbage, I should have gone for this instead, let me try this instead. And then they're like, all right, yeah, this is better. But then as they're doing that, like an alarm that Hajime has set up goes off. It's a proximity alarm, which I guess he had prepared because the custodian comes by, so they've got to hide, and then they've got to, you know, shoot around all this stuff that is happening. And Tenmaku's just watching all these kids making their first film together, and he's like, "This is great. This is awesome." We established that they were able to finish all of the school shots. We just kind of like skip ahead through this moment, and then there is a moment where Karai is thinking about something, and then Hajime kind of just like mumbles out loud really quietly, "It's not enough." And everyone's like, "What was that?" "Nothing. No. Look, it's difficult enough as is for us to shoot this stuff. We can't go any further. So it's fine." And then Tenmaku, you know, just invisibly just grabs him, and like shakes his head to make it look like he's not satisfied. And Karai comes over and she says, "You wanted to add a shot, didn't you?" And Hajime's like, "But we are not prepared, and I'm not good enough for this." And Karai's like, "It doesn't matter. You should do it. It's you're a director. Your job as a director is to insist on your vision." And we cut to the morning as people are coming to class, and they have stolen the custodian's cart to use as a makeshift dolly so that they can get some sort of action panning shot for something that Hajime wants to do. That's where we end, is with Ryota like pushing him while he's got the camera ready for this like sliding shot.
I love this. This is such a great chapter. It's just the spirit of like guerrilla filmmaking. You're a student film. You're just going to like everything's piecemeal. Everything you're doing, like you're shooting around a janitor cleaning because you're like, we're not actually supposed to.
We're not allowed to be here.
And just a great moment of him being like, "There's another shot I want to do," and getting the encouragement to be like, "If there's a shot you want to do, you should do it," and be like, "I'm so sorry, Mr. Janitor, we will bring this back," but stealing it. And like, just, you can see the conviction on his face in that last panel, and it's so cool. Like, that's just like a spirit that is, I think, very admirable. It's done in so many movies about making films, so it's different seeing it in a different medium. But yeah, it's awesome. Like, I love this spirit.
It's really, really nice. It just hits like, this chapter for me really hit the elements of these are amateur filmmakers for me, where, you know, like, yes, they've got all this stuff and they've done a really good job of preparing stuff, but they also like have no idea what they're doing because they're doing it for the first time, and so they're just like doing everything that they possibly can all together, and it's this transition from Hajime being the guy who watches the movie to the guy who makes them, and the guy who watches the movies hates the movie the guy who's making them is making. Lots of really good stuff.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. But let's move on to Mashle, Magic and Muscles, Chapter 157, Mash, Burn Dead, and the Reformed Rivals. So last time, all of Mash's major antagonists show up. They're going to help him get to Innocent Zero. And that's what we open with. We see Abyss Razor activate his Accelerate's ability to start speeding them along. He takes Mash and Margaret with them. They're doing a bunch of dashing around. Their speed's sort of weaving around these darkness beams. One is coming straight towards them though, and then it suddenly pivots, and we see it's because Lord Abel is controlling Innocent Zero's arm. He's like, you are puppeteering my body. I shall kill you first. But before I can do that, the big N appears on his face, and he gets rail cannoned right in the face from Levis.
Ow!
Yeah, Levis is just like, you beat me, so you better not lose to him. He's like, all right, well, I don't want to get smacked in the face by that over and over again, so I'm going to shield it, and then I'm going to just kill you.
You'll be the first to die.
Yeah, it's your turn to die. He goes to do that. His hand just starts exploding with blood, and we see it's Carpatria Liang, who's using his magic to be like, every pain I experience, you experience instead. Stab, 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 stab.
I'm a good guy now. This is the magic a good guy uses.
I'm the hero. And you're like, okay. He's like, you're all annoyances. Mash and Abyss Razor are coming towards him. Fires off a big beam. Abyss tries to block it with a sword, but kind of gets knocked away. However, Margaret snaps their finger, and they're ready to go. They're in their other form, their sonic form. I can't remember what it was called. And they're like, Mash, you hang on my back. I'm going to get you there. And they're zipping across every bear. They have this great line of, I'm so fast, it's sinful.
So weird.
Yeah, and they get really, really close, but at point blank range, Innocent Zero turns. It's like, pew, fires off this big beam. Margaret's like, he was able to counter my speed. Attack hits. Really comes in with some big energy there, and there's a smoke. And Zero's like, I felt that one connect. It's over. But we only see Margaret's body dropping from the sky. Mash isn't there, and instead Mash is right behind Innocent Zero. Margaret, as they're dropping down from the air, just goes, give him hell, my dear Mash. And Mash activates finger extensor magic. Gaia burst! No! Zawardo! Time stop now. And Mash has been frozen in time, and he's like, you all have refused to give in, and I commend you for your tenacity. You have gotten very far. However, my control over time means no one can defeat me. And this next spell, as he holds his wand right up to Mash's face, as this is going to be the ultimate output, you're going to be dead. And then his eye starts bleeding. And then his mouth starts bleeding. And he realizes there's a finger in his chest. And he's like, wait, the human's quickest possible reaction time is 0.1 second, meaning a 0.1 second lag exists between my thinking and casting a spell. He released his finger faster than that 0.1 second lag, beginning his attack the moment I noticed his presence. And he thinks back to Mash thinking yeah, if I got close to this guy, I can get him. I think I can definitely beat your time magic. And as his eyes are bleeding, he just says, had he wagered everything on settling this in just 0.1 seconds, and the chapter just ends in this gigantic explosion.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Just the idea is I stopped time. Oh, what the fuck? You finger poked me so fast.
Yeah, that's the best part, is him just being like, oh no. As he sees the finger stabbed into him, This is super cool. Everybody got to do something here. It's very funny seeing how a guy with a railgun and a guy who stabs himself to make you hurt are all used to good effect here, to be like, here's what they can do. It's just really, really cool. I think this is a great chapter.
Yeah. It's also love to see like, oh hey, Mash has had some very different opponents over the couple of years this manga's been running, hasn't he? All right, Quinn, we got to talk about the Elusive Samurai, chapter 111, intermission 1336, part 1. When we are told,
my favorite.
Let us examine 1 year when heroic figures rose and fell. So stuff happens. Takagi cuts his hair. And there's a new guy named Kitabatake Yakiye, and who's fighting against Ashikaga's men, and he's like, yeah, we need to run. He's like, I should go over to Kyushu and see if I can meet people over there. And so they're like, oh wow, Akie, you're so great. And he's like, bye. The Mikado does not understand his opponent. Takagi will soon launch a counterattack. And yep, that happens. And all right, look, I did not care about this chapter in the slightest.
Yeah, this was a rough one because it's very specifically Takauji, and it feels very caught up in like the politics of what the time was, and I just didn't vibe with this one the same way I did. That was like, here are all the like characters that you know and like have enjoyed throughout the series. This one felt very much like there is historical elements I need to reference, and like I'm going to do it in a stylized way, like the whole cutting of the hair and everything like that. A very abusing like parallel with him and Takeuchi or Takayuki.
Tokiyuki, yeah.
Tokiyuki. But this one felt like they were like, there are important things to do. And here's a couple other characters which are like whatever, but yeah, I didn't vibe with this one nearly as much as last week.
This chapter completely went in 1 year and out the other for me. You know, as opposed to the Spy Family chapter this week, where it's like, all right, a lot of stuff happened. It was not very entertaining, but you know, it's setting up stuff that is going to happen that maybe I'll be interested in. This one was just like, it feels like it's not setting up anything that I'm going to care about, because it's just going to continue the same conflict that it's been the entire time. It's not introducing anyone new in the grand scale of things. You could say like, oh, well, what about this Akie guy? Yeah, but like a month ago, or between a month and 3 months ago, there were all these characters you did introduce, and then they just died immediately, because it's just like, well, this is a historical person who was involved in this battle. Here they are, and now they're gone. And that's just kind of it. So I feel no need to get attached to this new character or care what they're up to.
I think there is an element of that Elusive Samurai at this point has kind of proven that like there's only been like 2 or 3 like semi-important antagonists who ever felt like very important. So the monk guy or the bandit guy with like the ant suit, and then I guess the eye or the ear guy, kind of like, I mean, obviously Ashikaga, but it's just like every general we kind of met within the Ashikaga group just kind of was defeated very quickly. So it's hard to just get super attached to Saki. Although I am interested in Archer, and that is like Tokiyuki's thing that he's supposed to learn. Mm-hmm. So
he's supposed to learn from the best and all that stuff. So.
All right, well, if we're going to wrap that up, we can move on to Black Clover. This is page 360, the end of the recap this week, Unreadable World. So we follow very briefly up on what happened last week, where Noel unleashes Leviathan, Street Dragon's War. ACR basically like sort of spins like a little tornado and like goes straight through it, and they're about to have a conflict. Although in my mind, when I first read it, I thought she like grinded on the dragon like a Tony Hawk video game. She doesn't do that. She spins instead.
That's right, Noel. Your mother is wicked sick.
And we end a little bit there with them just being like, all right, I'm coming at you. And we cover the fight with Master Luscious and Yuno. Master Luscious seems to have the upper hand here. Yuno was able to keep up because of his star magic and wind magic. It can let him keep up with his speed and predictions. But it's not enough. He throws Yuno into a building, and he holds out his hand. He's like, this attack will put your soul under my control. But there's a big light, And Yuno has created the wind spirit creation magic, the Spirit of Notos, a giant shield. It blocks the attack. And Master Lush is like, what is that spell? Wait, he's faster? This isn't right. The Yuno who grows up in the Clover Kingdom should not have this kind of power, even if he's burning his life to get it. In all my predictions, the world in which Yuno was the strongest is the one where he steadily acquired power in the Spade Kingdom, which never had a rebellion. But even that Yuno took several years to master star magic. However, this Yuno has reached that level in a bit over a year. Wait, no, he's even stronger. And that's not it. Noel Silva is not supposed to have ever grown this strong. Mary Leona should have been killed instantaneously by Morris. Fuego Leon shouldn't even be here. He should already be dead. And the Magic Knight should have given up. Why? What has changed? What is different between my predictions and the reality? And Yuno is coming at him. And there's like a dynamic, like both of them are kind of talking at once. But Yuno is basically thinking how he has always been the one to strike the last blow, and he did it when we fought Lucifero too. He's referring to Asta, and he's like, it's so frustrating. So that's why I keep conquering the me who wasn't good enough. And Master Luscious is like, this this world, its future can't be read. This is the world Asta influenced. And we end the chapter on a big 2-page spread of Yuno saying, no matter who I'm up against, I'll take them down. And he finishes with a big strike against Luscious.
Yeah, this is a cool chapter. Cool. I mean, the way that it's just kind of paced out with Master Luscious coming to this realization of like this is all that Asta the kid's fault. That things are this way, but the way he goes from not just to go like, oh, he's made this strong, but also like just hitting on like all these characters that are just a little bit different and a little bit stronger because Asta has been influencing them in some way. It does really make our hero out to be like, oh yeah, this is the effect this kid has had on the people within this story. And I don't know exactly about like the mechanics of how Luscious is able to read all of this in exactly the way that he has, but whatever, it's fine. Yes. It's just nice that we have this moment of like the villain realizes like, shit, God, I hate that kid.
Like Asta really changed a lot about these series. I do like it. Like, it feels very frustrating. I feel like some people are going to be like, oh, it's another like Asta thing. But I think the series has kind of earned it to this point where I don't think we're at the end of the story. It'd be wild if they defeated Master Lucius here and there is all this like setup that didn't get paid off. But I do like that he's like, I have predicted everything. Why is this universe not playing out the way I expected it? And it's like, because you never calculated Asta, the magicless kid, into your expectations. Although there is like a weirdness. I was like, you never started including him in your predictions when he was helping to fight in the Clover or the Spade Kingdom battle. Like, you should have started including him at that point.
Yeah, you should have started having some clues when he saved the kingdom for what, the third time. Like
after he killed Lucifero, I feel like you should have started putting the kid on your radar.
No. This kid's not important.
But very, very good. And I do appreciate. I don't know if it's intentional or not. But we're not really playing too much with the time magic that Luscious has. And I feel like that's very nice, knowing there's another fight against a big evil magic dude who has time magic going on in Mashle. I don't think it's intentional, but it definitely has been appreciated.
I think that there's a bit of restraint being shown because this is only the start of this arc, which is a good move. You don't want to have the villain use all of his tricks right at the beginning.
Yep. Good stuff. That's it. That's all the manga.
Yeah. Right. So, Quinn, tell me, what was your favorite this week? And who was your favorite character?
Chapter is really tough. MVP isn't. It's Kaichi from Akane-banashi is my character of the week. But chapter of the week is tough. I thought I knew going into this, but I was like, I really liked Undead Unluck. I thought Chainsaw Man was really cool. Akane-banashi was good, although I just gave that character. But Black Clover was great. Tenmaku Cinema was really, really good. Like, I just Mashle was really, really cool. I just feel like every series kind of earns it. I think if I just go by what series I seem to really like the most, I might say Tenmaku Cinema, but I really kind of want to give it to Black Clover.
Yeah, I fully understand where you're coming from. Like there were a lot of really good ones. Like I've kind of like just sort of like kind of like going through, and there's like 5 different series that I would feel fine being like, oh yeah, this was the best thing this week. You're absolutely right about it being Kaichi. Like Kaichi makes that chapter, and it's just really really cool to see a character just be like, nope, this is who I am, and I'm going for it. And it's a really good representation of what he is about. It's a great proper introduction to who he is in terms of his style. My favorite chapter this week, I think I am gonna go with Tenmaku Cinema.
Yeah.
It is like really, really, really. It's like neck and neck and neck and neck and neck for me, for a bunch of really good series.
Yeah, I think anything could earn. I am, to be very clear, going to give it to Tenmaku Cinema. And the audience, by the way, agreed with us with Kaichi. The audience picked Chainsaw Man as their chapter of the week, which again, totally get.
Also really good. Yeah.
Really, really funny. And I think in a different week, it definitely would have been like a strong, strong contender. But this is a really good week of manga, even without One Piece or My Hero.
That's okay, guys. There will be more polls to be held in the coming weeks. Yeah. How long until new Exorcist wins chapter of the week? Only time will tell.
I think it's just going to win polls that we do at the end of the year for best chapter recap and stuff absolutely. Like
that. Guys, this is going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap this week. We want to thank you all for joining us, for tuning in to twitch.tv/RoloT, where we record the show live Wednesday evenings at about 7:30 to 8 Eastern time is when we start off. You can also follow us on social media to know when we're going to start recording. It's RoloT, it's Nick F Time, it's WMR Podcast to follow those. We also drop a little reminder in the Discord if you want to join that. It'll be linked wherever you have listened to this, and you can join our community in talking about the chapters as they come out week to week, and talking about the recommendation that we take, and all sorts of other fun stuff as well. You can also use that to find the Google Doc maintained by Ninja X3i, which keeps track of all sorts of statistics associated with the show, including recommendations that we have taken, may take in the future, and also just like people's favorite moments associated with the show and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. We would like to also extend thanks to everyone who supports us on Patreon, patreon.com/Weekly Manga Recap. We recorded a buddy chat recently that should be going up on there. And we lost my train of thought. Our video version of the show are posted on youtube.com/Weekly Manga Recap. The audio version can be listened generally wherever podcasts can be posted, including Spotify, iTunes, and weeklymanga.podbean.com. The video version, the opening sequence, is done by Milo Jack Stillitz and Winslow Chitter. Thank you guys for creating that thing for us. And Steve Man occasionally does title cards for the series as well. You can check out his work wherever boobs are allowed to be drawn on the internet by searching for Steve Man Art. And now we come to the time where Nick says what we're going to read next.
Mm-hmm. You had a great pick last time.
I did. It was great. It was a great pick that I made. Mm-hmm. I actually have a manga this time. Ooh. And I've had it ready in my back pocket.
In the chamber.
That's right. Guys, there has been a series that has been highly recommended. It's gotten a number of things, a number of people all saying like, oh yeah, you guys should read this on the Google Doc. And as it so happens, it has recently taken the world by storm because it is one of the most it is one of the hottest new anime currently running. It has just debuted this season. It's Oshi no Ko. And
okay.
I know very little about this other than people are talking about it right now.
I'll tell you, the first volume is a trip. I've read the first volume. I think the second volume is about to come out here.
So we will dig into that and yeah, join us for that.
I'm going to be very curious to hear your thoughts on this one.
We'll see how it goes.
All right. Good stuff. Well, that is good. That's going to do it. Goodbye. I feel like I had a thought I was going to say, but all right. This is a good pick. You know what? This is like Family Feud when somebody says an answer and you're like, I'm unsure, but good pick, good pick. You gotta cheer for your team no matter what.
Oh dear, what have I done?